little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. So lives to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's good to have you along for the ride wherever you are on this great planet we like to call Earth. We are live right here at Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the Great White North on this Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning if you're on the East Coast, and man, is it chilly out. A balmy minus 24 degrees Celsius outside the studio. It is chilly. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on the Spaced Out Radio chat rooms, on Spreaker, on spacedoutradio.com, on the United Public Radio Network, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and, of course, on Revolution Radio and on Twitter. We do this thing every night of the week as we rock in and out of every show, thanks to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Yes, Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. Hey, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. If you want to take part in this show, there's a few ways you can do it because we don't usually take callers. You'll have to sign into one of the chat rooms, either on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter listening in, you can just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and I will get to your questions and comments there as well. On our website, if you haven't signed up for the Spaced Out Radio SOR Space Travelers Club yet, it is time. It's $5 a month. And with that, your name gets entered into monthly prize draws. You get access to group interviews and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a heck of a lot more than just access to our archives. While on our website, you can read up on my latest blog, check out Eric Markham's SOR Space Wire, and if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our researcher Mike Schmidt is waiting to investigate it for you. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world, 25,000 strong and growing listening to this program. And if you're a listener on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Tonight is a special anniversary for me, and I'll get into that later on in the show, and I'm so glad to have Samantha Mowat on as my guest to share this with. You see, Samantha is not only a monthly contributor on Spaced Out Radio with her ET Experience segment the second Tuesday of every month, but she's also a good family friend of mine since we met in April of 2014. Samantha has helped me through my own personal experiences and helped me guide me through many hard and emotional times, amongst others whom she's done it with as well. You see, when you're a contactee, There aren't many people you can really turn to find the answers you need to satisfy the millions of thought that run rampant through your head on a daily basis trying to figure out what is going on. If you're a first-time listener to us, or a first-time listener to Samantha speaking, well, I'm going to tell you, you're in for a real treat. See, Samantha is a lifelong ET contactee. In my opinion, she is the best-kept secret in ET contact research. Her knowledge is not opinion. It's fact on what she has learned from the beings from the stars. She pulls no punches. She's had both good and bad contact. She's been enlightened and afraid of what comes next. But she also knows how to guide and protect not only herself, but those whom she consults as well. If you want to learn more about Samantha, you can head to her website, samanthamowat.ca. Samantha, we welcome you back to Spaced Out Radio. Can you believe this is our last show together of 2016?
Hi, Dave. And no, I can't. It's just been a really fast year for me. It's amazing.
It's been an incredibly fast year. And, you know, it's funny. Mrs. SOR and I, we were talking about this just the other day, how it seems the years, the older we get, seem to be going by so much faster. And I read something on that basically says it's because when you're growing up, you have so many things to look forward to. And when you're an adult, it's usually pay the bills, watch a little TV, go to work in the morning, and it's such a repetitive routine that one day just gets lost in the other, and that's why it seems to be going faster and faster. I don't know what it is. Maybe time just speeds up the older you get.
That's definitely a possibility, but I do believe you are able to stretch time and make it go slower through something you wish to enjoy.
Well, that's one of the many teachings you're going to have to give me, my dear, because it's going by way too fast right now.
Well, we'll get into that in the new year, Dave. It'll be a lot of fun, and we'll get into it.
Absolutely. How you been?
To be honest, not very well. I've had my mediumship go through the roof in the last couple of weeks. I've had 2 aunts die, and I've got another family member close to passing. So my ability to hear my guides during that time kind of sunk way down because I've had a lot of people who've passed seem to be coming forward, and it's throwing me off because, as you know, Dave, mediumship isn't my strongest gift. It's not one I choose to normally indulge in, but it does seem to be very prevalent at this time.
And, you know, it's something that you really have to caress and take care of, isn't it? Because it's draining, it's emotional, it's stressful. It's a little bit of every emotion that goes right through your body, isn't it?
It truly is. When you have a medium experience, which many of your listeners will have, let's say you wake up in the middle of the night and there's a deceased loved one standing at the foot of your bed. Not only can that really throw you off and make it difficult for you to go back to sleep, but your mind will be thinking about it a lot over the next several days. Even as I was telling a dear friend of mine earlier today, I went to grab my coffee cup earlier this week, and when I put my hand around the coffee cup, I felt another person's hand right on top of mine as though they were trying to pick up my coffee at the same time. And when things like that happen, it can really throw you off. The way a deceased person feels is a denser and different vibration than that of spirit guides and that of extraterrestrials and multidimensionals. So that's an energy and vibration that I don't typically work with. And I felt like a normal person in a sense, feeling, in one sense, freaked out.
I do have to ask you, though, Samantha, because a lot of people who have listened to you before on this show, you being a monthly guest, the second Tuesday of the month, they don't recognize you as the psychic or the medium or the intuitive person. They recognize you as the ET contactee. How do you draw that division between being a psychic medium and being an ET contactee?
Well, most psychics have contact with multidimensionals and extraterrestrials, and most contactees, abductees, or experiencers have a degree of psychic ability in themselves. As you will have heard from many of the different contactees that you've been in touch with over the years, Dave, they all are either empaths, so people who can pick up on the emotions of others, or they are clairvoyant like me, or they are able to have some form of psychic gift come through, whether it's telepathy or remote viewing. One thing that we tend to focus on in this show is only my ET experiences. We could go into more of the psychic aspect. However, that is something that I feel is taught very commonly throughout this world, whereas the extraterrestrial component isn't talked about in a fair light. So I'm very grateful that you and I are able to discuss that. But one thing that I do find is being psychic and having contact, it can be really hard to relate to people, but sometimes you have to shut it down a bit if you're going to be going to either a pack meeting or out with your friends or even to family functions, because you do need to have a degree of normality within your life.
How hard is that for you, Samantha? I mean, you have a family, you have friends, you have loved ones that surround you, and yet every day you're on. You know, whether it's the psychic mediumship, spirits coming in, whether it's the extraterrestrial contact that you have on a weekly basis, if not more, that's a busy life and a draining life. It's amazing that you can wrap it all together. How do you do it?
In one way, I feel as though I'm on survival mode most of the time, where you don't really stop and think. You just kind of do what you know and feel you need to be doing at this time. When it comes to the family that I married into, who aren't as, let's say, aware of what I'm doing, they do know what I do. They're aware that I'm on with you, Dave. They're aware of my YouTube stuff. We don't talk a whole lot about what it is I'm discussing in these videos. They know it's in relation to extraterrestrials, but it's also reading into the other people's energy and gauging their degree of comfort in what it is you're talking about. Like anything in life, you don't want to talk to people about your work if it's just going to bore them to tears and they're not going to understand, do you? So it is a matter of reading that energy quite a bit and knowing, hey, if I have a really interesting experience, I can call my mom or my dad, or I can call any of my best friends and be like, hey, look, this happened. This was so amazing, rather than calling someone on the other side of my family.
And that's the difficult part, because in the end, whether it's family or not, you have to be careful what you say and how you talk to people, because not everybody is comfortable with this. Maybe it's their own personal belief, maybe it's religious belief, maybe it scares them and it's a topic that they find taboo. So how do you edit yourself from having this type of conversation just kind of blurt out and trying to be that normal, everyday husband or wife, to your husband, friend, sister, cousin, mother, whatever you want, because you wear a lot of hats.
Yes, I do. But one thing that I've found, and that helps me, is I quite often ask my guides, hey, look, this encounter was intense, or this is really bothering me. Can you bring me people I can talk to about it and make me know right away with them bringing up a topic starter? Let's say I go to, well, let's just say, Dave, name a place. Where am I going?
Let's go to, I don't know, Disneyland.
Okay, I'd love to. But let's say I went to Disneyland with my family. And let's say for some reason I saw someone who was very obviously a hybrid. And let's say I'm with my extended family. Well, I could say, wow, I just saw the most incredible energy person. And they would be able to understand that. But later when I'd get to my hotel room with my husband, I'd be like, oh my God, I saw a hybrid in the crowd and they had this kind of eyes, and watch the kids, I have to go draw this out and write everything down before I forget it. Or if something along those lines happens, that is typically what my family gets used to. They get used to me saying, okay, well, this is how much, one second, guys, what am I trying to say here? Depending upon who I'm talking to, I'm comfortable revealing a certain amount of information. So if I'm talking to my sister, I can be like, hey, Nick, I saw all of these things. And she will be able to understand and relate to that and exchange her experiences. But if I'm talking to someone at school and I, let's say, see some sort of angelic being walking around and maybe, hey, do you feel that? It feels so much lighter and happier. Or that other person may say, do you believe in angels? I feel the sense of an angel. Because topics like that, people are more comfortable with because they associate angels with good, not realizing that most angels are higher dimensional beings such as light beings. That is kind of how I go about my life, is trusting my guides to have someone else start that conversation for the most part.
And we're going to get into a special anniversary of mine in the second hour here. And I may have a little bit of a surprise for you, Samantha.
Ooh, exciting.
Yes, Mrs. Spaced Out Radio may come down and join us for that hour.
Oh, I would love that. She's one of my favorite people.
Yes, yes, she is pretty stellar. And the reason why I want to bring her down was because she was there, because tonight is the 5-year anniversary of my happily boring life ending. And I will get into that experience with you and the audience in the second hour, but it all started for me at exactly 7:45 p.m. Pacific time tonight. So I can't believe it's 5 years already. I'm absolutely blown away how fast everything has moved over the last 5 years. Incredible. Just incredible. But Samantha, we are here for you because you bring a distinctive type of expertise to Spaced Out Radio. And I'm going to ask you, do the extraterrestrials care about holidays? Do they care about Christmas or, Ramadan or any type of religious holiday where the contactees who are celebrating these times with their family and friends, do the ETs even care? Does it even push by them?
It's not a matter that these beings do not care that we have these holidays. Rather, in my awareness from what I've encountered with them, they don't seem to have the same understanding as to why we celebrate many of the things we do. The notion of gift giving, especially to the degree that we do at Christmas or winter solstice or Hanukkah, is just beyond them. They don't understand. Let alone why we celebrate things for thousands of years, such as killing trees is one thing that I know they really don't understand, how we could go out and kill a tree and put it in our house and feel really good about that. They've shown me some confusion regarding that matter. Mm-hmm. But Dave, one thing I've noticed over the last few Christmases and what have you for me is I will have contact quite a bit during that time, because typically I'm on Vancouver Island. I'm in locations where there's not a lot of, plane traffic or traffic in general, because most of my family lives in the country. So their ability to come in, rather than in an astral form, but in a physical form through craft or other physical means such as vortexes, is more, capable for them without being detected, so to speak.
What about different nights like Halloween, where kids are out trick-or-treating? I mean, here they could literally land on the street, walk down the street, and nobody would know the difference. They would just say, hey, that's a pretty cool costume.
And I'm fairly certain that happens, but I've never noticed them on Halloween. I don't think I've ever had an encounter on Halloween, to the best of my knowledge. They would probably be confused as to why we would celebrate a holiday that brings fear towards most people. Because really, if you think about the vibration people emit during Halloween is trick or treat. A lot of the tricks being scary tricks or just scary costumes, things of that nature, would be very confusing towards these beings who are trying to raise our vibration, increase the consciousness upon this planet. They wouldn't understand why we'd be willing to take 2 steps backwards and call this fun.
I got a quick question from Mario. This is getting back into your intuitiveness. He is asking, do you do tea leaf readings?
Yes, I do. Tissography is one of my favorite things to do. Typically, Mario, if you want to learn how to do tea leaf readings, send me an email. I'll send you a couple of quick tips. It's so easy, so fun. And in the past, I've found it to be a very accurate way of predicting the future when you're wanting to just get a quick idea about one question. One of my favorite tea leaf reading experiences happened when I was in Campbell River. I was reading for this one woman who worked with my mother. And while I was just pouring the first cup of tea with her, she drank most of the tea, and she looked at the bottom of her cup. She's like, well, what do you see? I'm like, okay, well, do me a favor. I'm like, drink a little bit more and flip it upside down, because how you had it isn't really how it works. So she drank the rest of the tea, flipped her cup upside down. In the bottom of the cup, I kid you not, was the picture of a stork, a very traditional outline of a stork. And I said, well, someone near you is going to be having a baby and telling you very shortly. And she's like, no, that's impossible. My daughters are all done having kids. And I said, look, it's in the bottom of the cup. That means family and friends, immediate future. And about an hour or so later, after I had done a clairvoyant reading for that woman, we're standing in her kitchen waiting for her daughter to show up for her reading. And within 10 minutes, her daughter says, Mom, I've got to tell you, I'm pregnant. And this woman was just howling with laughter. She's like, how is this possible? How can leaves tell you what's happening? So I had to explain to her how our energy really gets mixed into the water. And because our energy body is connected to those around us, that energy can pick up on our family being sick or our family being pregnant or things coming up in our work experiences and put that energy into the water, which affects the tea leaves, which changes the way the pictures are in the cup. It's so amazing and so much fun. I love doing it.
I still don't understand it. I really don't.
I'll show you the next time I see you. Super easy.
Absolutely, and hopefully that'll be very, very soon. So, Mario, if you need to get a hold of Samantha on her website, she can give you some tips on her email on how you can learn more about tea leaf reading. Let's move on to the extraterrestrials here, because we're getting into the season where, you know, people start thinking more about family, the year that was, and as 2016 comes to a close, how would you explain the year of contact for 2016?
Busy. And for me, it's been very heavily focused upon reptilians this year. Not necessarily in bad contact, so much as getting a deeper understanding of the diversity within their culture, the diversity within their opinions, and the ways in which they present themselves 2 years ago versus how they present themselves to me now has changed. When it comes to the tans, they've also been a large part of this year, as have mantis. However, this year, Pleiadians have really stepped back, Andromedans have really stepped back. I don't believe I've seen light beings this year. It's been primarily focused on those three groups and quite a bit, including a few MyLab encounters. So it's been a little bit stressful and a little bit busy, but that's okay. It taught me a lot.
Do you think that had to do anything, Samantha, with how rambunctious this year was? Okay, we saw a lot of famous people pass away, including people like David Bowie, who swore they were ET contactees. We saw a lot of tumultuous times in the Middle East, where Syria was disrupted even more. There was more action. Russia got involved, started bombing the Middle East, and the Americans didn't like that. So we have a lot of military tension. And then we have all the hubbub with the United States election, which finally culminated in November. Mm-hmm. But it was a tumultuous year for the world. Do you think that that has anything to do with the type of contact people are having as well? Because I guess what I'm trying to get at here, it was a very negative year for a lot of people. A lot of people more than ever are saying they can't wait for 2016 to be over. It felt so negative, so drab for many people. And with that negative energy that is being put out there, could it have affected the contact, good or bad, that people were having?
Oh, yes, undoubtedly. For me, one thing that I was a little concerned about partway through the year was, why am I only having contact with the beings that I do not typically associate as being the more benevolent ones? What is going on here? And I was a little confused by it for a while, but then I thought about it. And many of the good beings in which I've been in association with in the past, they do not need me to see them on regular intervals to maintain doing the work that I'm doing, to maintain trying to raise consciousness and help people become more aware of them. I know they're with me. I know that I'm safe. I don't have that same fear base in my life that most people do. Yes, I go through fearful periods, but not to the degree that most people experience it. And one thing that I noticed is many of the beings that I had in the past associated as being predominantly negative or with ulterior motives and agendas, this year, with my kind of wonky vibration with, well, a family member being sick and getting ready to pass, and the wonky energy around Earth, did change the different beings that came to see me. But with the reptilians that I did end up seeing, they showed me a different side to their culture. And I will get into that in a little bit, maybe in January or later today if we have time. But it showed me not only are the Federation of Light good, or the Family of Light, or the Alliance, things like that are wonderful. But it started to show me that within these other groups, as Earth is changing in vibration, these other groups are changing and new beings are coming out and interacting with people that they hadn't been in association with before. And that was a very exciting and promising thing for me to see. I was very grateful to meet a reptilian that was completely black with these amazingly beautiful scales, and to have him show consideration and kindness towards me when the other reptilians that I had met that were completely black had been very mean. So it was quite nice to see that different side to them without feeling manipulation occurring. Do you see what I'm saying?
I totally understand with what you're saying, and I have talked to other investigators and researchers in the field of ufology and alien contact, and they said that for the most part, 2016 was a down year for a lot of people reporting investigations, except recently, pretty much since after the U.S. election, that's where things have seemed to pick up again. Did you notice some sort of roller coaster trend this year with your contact as well?
Yeah, mine slowed down towards the end of summer, and it picked right up again mid-November. And since the middle of November, I've had 6 or 7 quite prominent encounters. So I agree. I've had it.
What causes that type of roller coaster effect?
Well, there's a couple different things that can be in effect with it. As we had discussed in last time you and I spoke, Dave, many of those beings were watching to see the way that the people on Earth not only were perceiving the election that was going in the States, because the U.S. does have a very strong military complex. So that does ultimately affect the majority of the world, seeing, well, how are these people interacting with their consciousness? What decisions are they making? Who are they choosing to lead them? And whether it was Hillary or Trump, it really didn't matter in the end of the day, but the amount of emotion the people had behind what was going on does affect whether contact is going to be occurring. Most of these beings, not only are they watching our energy, and I'm sorry to be such an energy-obsessed person, but when you start to realize that everything is energy and the energy you put out brings certain things to you, it really changes the way that not only you perceive life, but the way these beings interact with you. And that's why my encounters are so different. Many people may think that all their encounters are only bad, but if they start to learn the personalities behind these beings and their cultural practices, they would start to perceive them a little bit differently.
And how would they proceed with them differently?
Well, if you think about it this way, how do most people perceive mantis? They see them as being very, let's say, logical. They don't deem them as being beings that have a lot of emotion. They don't typically see them as being beings who would understand humor. But if you start to look at how their culture interacts, where, yes, they are very logical, but a lot of people think they were insensitive or mean or not taking into consideration how the contactee was feeling. But how many people actually stop and talk to these beings when they're encountering them and try to ask them questions, whether it's using your voice and speaking or through telepathy, or even just reading that energetic signature being, well, produced by the being, and that's coming into your own energy field. The one thing that I've really noticed about it is, one second, if you're trying to understand them, you have to be willing to try to see things from their perspective. And it changes everything when you're able to look beyond your own energy and partially meld. What am I trying to say, guides? Thank you. Mix your energy with theirs so you have a more diverse understanding of the situation. I'm not sure if I answered your question. I've got too many beings trying to talk to me at once.
Do any of them want to talk?
Unless you want to talk to an 80-year-old woman, probably not. Sorry.
Well, if all of a sudden you feel like you want to channel, you just tell me, and we will open up that right away. I do have a question from Joe here. He is asking, well, he says stupid question, but I don't think it is a stupid question at all.
No such thing.
Exactly. But, you know, Joe does have nice hair, and we always like to point out Joe's incredible mane. You know, but he is asking, do reptilians have tails?
Some do and some don't. The higher class reptilian will have tails versus the worker class do not. It is also typically a sign of one that does have more quote-unquote pure blood or blue blood to have a tail.
I would have never thought of it that way. I thought they all would have had tails.
No, definitely not.
Weird.
They also have hybrided reptilians that are a mixture within their DNA. So depending upon, let's say they have a reptilian that is only supposed to do one job, like a grunt class job of intimidating people and collecting loosh. So that fear-based energy that we emit, in which case they would not have a very high degree of intelligence, they would have decreased psychic abilities, and they would not have a tail. They also wouldn't have the same size, like their same muscular capabilities. Yes, they're immensely stronger than us. That's not hard. We're not terribly strong for the most part. But there's a huge degree in not only height, muscle, like bulk, so to speak, and how they conduct themselves and their capabilities. There really is a huge amount of diversity within that culture and society and race. I hope that answers your question, Joe.
So they're very segregated.
Very much so. They have a class system, much like we do.
Is it as political as what our system would be like?
I would say so, yes, but theirs is more based upon royalty rather than the way in which we conduct ourselves.
So when you were dealing with this, how do you know if you were dealing with a benevolent or malevolent reptilian? Because I think for the most part, people take them as to be the not-so-nice guys.
And you know what, Dave? I made that mistake initially when I first started encountering them, too. I assumed that, which was very racist of me looking back on it, that this is reptilian, they are evil, what is their agenda? They cannot possibly have my good in mind, which was very wrong of me. The same way that you would feel out different people, as we've talked about before, when you have that initial feeling of I'm safe with someone or I'm not safe with someone, the way in which they speak to you, whether they're speaking in a condescending tone, whether they're belittling you, trying to intimidate you, an example of whether they are more malevolent. The ones that are very respectful, for instance, in my last 2 or 3 encounters back with reptilians, the black one that I was speaking about earlier, who changed my perspective, when he first appeared to me on the other side of the road. And then he had followed me to a different location. And when he appeared to me, he appeared as human, but I could feel reptilian in him. And he said, I'd like to show you my true form. And I said, okay, buddy, you've got to stand way back. I am not comfortable having you 2 feet away from me and fully uncloaking. So he took a couple steps back and I said, a little bit further. And he went about 10 feet away, I believe it was, something like that. And then he decloaked. And that to me is an indication of a being that is not being hostile, that is not malevolence, that is being benevolent. When they're willing to share information with you and they're willing to actually talk with you, that is an indication of respect and being more benevolent. Things of that nature, the same basic things that you would look for when you're interacting with people in a lot of sense. But you do have to remember many of these beings do have a strong awareness of our strengths and our capabilities. And if you do end up running into one, there's a good chance that being has been watching you for a while and knows more about you than you're aware that it knows about you. So there is very little point in lying or trying to be misleading. If you lie to those beings, they can go from being nice to very, very mean quite quickly. So I do not recommend it, nor do I recommend any actions which can be threatening. If you find yourself faced with a malevolent reptilian, you will know because you will feel scared. You will have that giant predator energy radiating out of that being heading in towards you. I'm sorry to go so fear-based for a moment, but let me just finish this spiel. And if that is the case, I recommend you take a couple steps back and you lower your eyes. Because if you are not aware of how to protect yourself on an energetic scale, challenging that being is not a good idea. Because they will go on the offensive very, very quickly.
How does someone know, Samantha, when they are having a reality contact? And what I mean by that is when you and I, in April of 2014, walked into that forest and we saw those beings. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. We were wide awake, okay? They weren't in spiritual form. They were in a physical type form right in front of us. Most people who have those experiences do not have them with their eyes open. They have them with their eyes closed. Why is that? And why can't people see more than just what they see in their dreams or spiritually?
Well, one thing people need to take into account with that is many of the beings that we call extraterrestrial are actually extra dimensional or multidimensional in nature. The worlds that they live on aren't necessarily billions of miles away in galaxies far, far away. Yes, they could be in this dimension, but the worlds that they occupy typically can be on a similar vibration to ours, so they can kind of cross over from one dimensional frequency over to another, which would be the one we are in. That's why they can kind of cloak, go invisible for a minute, and then suddenly appear out of nowhere, or someone may see almost like a hazy outline or see something out of the corner of their eye for a moment. But getting back to the other part, Dave, where you ask, why do most encounters occur on the astral versus physical? Changing your dimensional or your vibrational frequency from one dimension to another not only takes a lot of conscious effort, it requires a lot of energy on your part. So if you do not have the capability to go through a vortex, say you don't have the technology on hand because you're not at your base or you're not picking someone up on craft, then it's much easier to access that person on the astral when their soul leaves their body, because every night when you go to sleep, your soul leaves your body and your soul travels around. Sometimes your soul will travel around Earth, going to different locations, checking up on people you love. Or it can go at the lower astral, which are those dreams that you have where it's dark outside and you're seeing other people, and typically things look like they're a little bit shabby or warlike, and it has a very dense kind of fear-based feeling to it. Or you can go to the higher planes, depending upon the being that's trying to interact with you and their vibration, their aura and energy. That can determine what frequency those beings can access you at. And in order to better explain why a lot of these beings don't come into your home, is there are government technologies that can sense when there is an energetic spike within a certain area. And there will be like, let's say in your home right now, Dave, there's a strong energetic spike of a being either teleporting into your home or opening up a portal inside your home. That would send out an energetic spike, which a lot of those, not only satellites can pick up on, but different forms of towers can pick up on, or remote viewers can notice, things of that nature. Let's say you're being watched, and I'm not trying to be paranoid, but let's say you are being watched by the government because you're in my lab or because of whatever, or you're a well-known contactee. Then they would see that energetic spike and know, okay, there's a being there, which can put those beings in danger if they're not on the same side as the people who are monitoring you. As many of the people on your show are well aware of, my labs are people that have contact with extraterrestrials and multidimensionals, but a lot of them will also have contact with government officials. Well, not necessarily official, but secret government members that also interact with multidimensional and extraterrestrial beings. And if the extraterrestrial that is visiting you, going into your home at this moment, is working in alliance with them, then they would know that energy spike was taking place and they would just dismiss it. They wouldn't think too much about it. But if it was an energy spike, say, from a benevolent being teleporting in, or their craft and the energy signature coming from their craft above your house and them coming in through your home, the government would have no awareness of that. And then that being would be in danger, or their craft could get shot down. So it is easier to visit you on the astral, exchange information in the dream time, than it is to do it in a physical body.
Do they prefer to do it in a physical body, though? Because
not necessarily.
They do have to realize that if they want people to take them and the experience seriously, whether it's benevolent or not, that taking them, or I would say probably thinking about it now, more benevolent than anything else, you would think that that physical experience like we had in the forest would be a little bit more wanted
Prominent?
and warranted and prominent, yes.
Well, that's the thing, though, Dave. Those beings that you and I encountered in the forest, look where we were. We were on the far, far outskirts of Vancouver. We were in the woods in an area that is well known for ET contact, which is fine. But how much energy do you think those beings would have to put in when it comes to their calculations to visit people who live in cities? Be it Vancouver, Tokyo, Seattle, you name it. They'd have to have a very strong awareness of what not only government officials are doing, but of what the military is doing, of what people who they don't want to necessarily scare. Because if someone sees a craft hovering above an apartment building, someone's probably going to call 911 if they're fear-based towards extraterrestrials, aren't they?
But is that why we are seeing more and more people in rural areas starting to have experiences and coming forward with their experiences?
To an extent, yes, because it is easier for them to physically come down here, like where you and I are, than in city areas. Dave, look at the highway between your house and mine. There's good, 20 or 30-minute stretches where you could not pass a car between, 10 o'clock at night and 5 in the morning? Easily?
Yes, definitely. And
how easy is it for them to come down and see us during that time versus someone who's driving out towards Mission from Langley?
And there's been a lot of people in this area who have reported sightings along the highways at night. The most famous being Miriam Delicato, because that's what happened to her.
Precisely my point. It is much easier to do that up here. Even my husband last week, he saw 2 craft when he was driving back from where he was working in that hour-and-a-half drive between there and our home.
See, I miss seeing that. I got to spend more time outside again. I don't care if
Yes,
it's
you do.
I don't care if it's minus 25 like it is right now, Celsius. Okay?
Yes.
And clear. I got to spend more time outside. Let's get to some questions from our audience here. And remember, if you're following along on Twitter, hashtag Spaced Out Radio to get your questions in to me. I am watching you right now, so load them up if you don't mind. Let's get to Claudia's question in the SOR Space Traveler. She is asking, Samantha, do extraterrestrials gather around while ceremonies are going on, for instance, in sweat lodges, prayer circles, or even music concerts, or any large gatherings where people are happy?
Yes, with happy, and yes, with other emotions as well. You got to remember, depending upon the extraterrestrial group, some will be more inclined. Like, let's say you're going to a sweat lodge, Claudia, in an area where they have a sweat lodge celebrating every equinox and solstice and full moon. There would be certain extraterrestrials that have been following the clans and the people that go to those sweat lodges and interacting with them during those sacred ceremonies. So yes, there are beings that do follow ceremonies, and many of these beings that we're in contact with have their own ceremonies, which is part of the foundation of where we get many of our ceremonies from. We think they're of our invention, but really they're what we picked up from what we call the star people, which is quite fascinating.
Let's get to Joe's question. He says, Samantha, twice in my life I've woken up about 60 feet in the air, directly above where I was sleeping, then slammed back into my body. Did I interrupt an astral projection, or did I prevent an abduction?
It could be either, depending upon, well, Joe, did you feel or sense any form of extraterrestrial or multidimensional before going to sleep or after you were slammed back into your body? If you did not, then chances are you were astral projecting and regained consciousness and went back into your body. The next time you find yourself in that same astral state where you see yourself being 10 feet, 60 feet, whatever, decide that I'm not falling, I'm going to keep rising, and then think of a location and you will either teleport there or fly there depending upon what your being chooses to do. It's quite fun.
Joe is one of the people who has actually tried my little experiment of putting 2 coins on his dresser. Yes, and they have moved.
Oh, that's exciting. So chances are you are having contact. One thing that I've noticed, Joe, when I typically have my astral encounters, I don't always remember leaving my body. Sometimes it feels like I will lay down in bed, and after I close my eyes, a second later, it feels like I open my eyes and I'm on craft, which that is another way in which you can find yourself suddenly being within these ET encounters. It's quite an odd experience, but one you will get used to.
Bob, who has one of the nicest beards you'll ever see, is asking, what is that silver thread that people have seen attached to others who are astral projecting? And I don't think it's Bob's gray chin hair he's talking about at this point.
I'm very excited for your beard. Probably not the chin hair. It actually sounds like an etheric cord connecting the soul towards the body. Normally, you're able to follow the cord back towards someone's physical body and know where it is they are located with their physical form. And depending upon who you're encountering on an ET level, sometimes it's best to bilocate, putting your energy in multiple locations and trying to spread your physical body's essence elsewhere, depending upon if you're having a good encounter or not.
Let's get over to Trip's question. He is asking, people born with tails, are they just special people or are they reptilian hybrids?
More than just reptilians have tails, so that's not really a fair thing to say that they would just be reptilian hybrids. Most people born with tails are O negative, which does mean more ET DNA, not necessarily reptilian. But that's a hard one. That really is a hard one, Trip, because of those people you'd have to find out what encounters they're having, because many of those people that have the extra rib or the tail or even extra fingers or toes or webbed feet or webbed hands typically are hybrids with a higher percentage of activated ET DNA.
Do you think, though, that people born with tails, that it's just an anomaly? Or do you think it is ET related?
I would say so.
What makes you feel that?
The reason why I feel that is some of the beings that I've encountered, like, let's say you're on craft and you're seeing hybrid children, the ones that you end up seeing, like, okay, 1 second, guys, what am I trying to say? When you're on craft, and in particular, if you're a woman and you end up not only meeting your children, but you end up seeing the other hybrid children from other women, you will notice that some have exceptionally big eyes, or some have very little hair, or very long fingers, or sometimes tails. You will notice all sorts of kind of abnormalities, which would typically not be perceived as being a perfectly normal human physique, but are a mixture between one or several ET-DNA races with that of human form. And when you start to see those put into one body, whether it's someone having a tail or someone having the really, really big eyes or whatever, you start to get a better idea of just how the ETs interacting with us while we are pregnant or trying to make hybrids, because the hybridization thing is a very real aspect of life for humans on Earth. How sometimes people will be very, very normal except for, say, an extra vertebrae or a very small tail, and those ones are still allowed to be full-term pregnancies, and the child still come to be born. I hope I explained that well. If not, please ask me again.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Mario is asking, do you believe, Samantha, they are the future of a human race using time travel to come back and control everything?
Not necessarily, because from the information that I've been given, we have been tampered with since the beginning of being on Earth. Yes, we may have some ETs or multidimensionals that are coming from the future and interacting with us, but we also have many different groups that are living in the same time period, so to speak, as we are now. Although many of them operate outside of time, and I'm not entirely sure how that works. But they say time's more of a human construct.
Do you think humans will eventually evolve into extraterrestrials?
Yes, and in a sense, we already have. How many humans on this Earth have already traveled to Mars or different solar systems or different, areas throughout time and space? We already are a space-faring race, just not as a whole and only in very small sections so far. But yes, we will once again be able to return to space in the way that we travel from town to town.
When people are seeing things in the sky, how do they know that they are looking at an extraterrestrial craft rather than something that could be man-made?
Well, there's a couple different things. If it's man-made, typically it will not communicate with you. So let's say you're seeing let's say you're seeing something in the sky, whether it's what you think could be a star moving across, or you think it could be a satellite. Yes, you could play with lasers. You could telepathically communicate with it and change its direction. Or you could do the very bold thing and ask for it to come down, depending upon how safe you're feeling. But if it's daytime or nighttime, there are different things you can do. if it's daytime and you see an ET craft, you can send it a telepathic message because most of these beings are telepathic. And you could say, could you please come closer? I'm not sure if you're craft or if you're government. Most beings that are human, if they aren't necessarily ET and it's a human-made craft here on Earth, it will not have the same capabilities as that of the Pleiadians or the Andromedans because our technology is not nearly as advanced. So if you see something that's in the sky off to your left for about 10 seconds, then it suddenly shoots across to the right and it teleports and it comes again on the left, then that is undoubtedly an ET craft. Or if you see a very large craft just hovering, you kind of get a feeling for it. I know that may sound very odd and not like a very good description, but Dave, when you've seen craft, you can feel the energy coming out of not only the living beings within that craft, but of the craft itself, knowing that this is not from here. What I'm seeing is something that is not from here.
What is really cool for me, and I'm not as in-depth as you when it comes to this, but when you have an experience where that craft is communicating with you, the last time this happened was just a number of months ago, and I was on the phone after the show. It was after we did the show with James Fetzer, the conspiracy theorist, and Eric Markham from the SOR Spacewire and I, we were talking on the phone after the show, and all of a sudden I saw the flashing of light, which I have recognized as what I call strobing. And I started saying to that craft, I said to Eric over the phone, and I wish I could have had this on camera with him, but you damn well know an iPhone camera is not going to pick that up. And I started play-by-play on the phone. I asked that craft, it was way off in the northeast, and I asked it to fly right over my house. And be damned if all of a sudden, a couple of minutes later, it started heading on the trajectory over my house. And that type of contact is what I think a lot of people crave. A lot of people may say, well, that's just coincidence. A satellite is going by, it's rolling, it's reflecting off the sun. You just know in your gut. And that's what you're trying to say, isn't it?
Yeah, that is exactly what I'm trying to say. You can sense the difference. Most people just don't trust their intuitive hunches. They rely on their logical mind to try to break every situation they encounter apart, whether it's paranormal, extraterrestrial, multidimensional, whatever. They try to rationalize it in some form of their mind. If they can't rationalize it, typically they block it out and try to forget it, which I do understand. But it's counterproductive on their part.
Well, and that's the big one. And, you know, I think a lot of people have to be able to look at the signs, but then again comes the next question for people who aren't experienced in this. It's, what are the signs? What do I need to look for? What should I be feeling? Why don't you, we got about 4 minutes before we got to go to break here, Samantha, so take some time to maybe delve into that.
Okay, well, let's start with the beginning. Let's go with daytime. Let's say you're trying to call craft and you're wanting to see something in the daytime. I do recommend, let's say next Saturday, you have a free afternoon, no work, no kids, no spouse, and you just want to go see craft. Give them a location that you want to see them. A park where it's a clear sky, or a field, or let's say you're someone who likes to go hunting or fishing and you just want to be way out in the woods and you're like, hey, look, this is the spot I'm going to be. I'll be here at about this time. Every day, make that energetic connection towards benevolent beings, saying, this is what I want to see you, I want to connect with you, this is where I'm going to be on this day. And when you start to make that energetic focus, you can actually get them to show up not only in the location that you want, but at the time you want. I recommended this to a good friend of mine a couple months ago, and he found that he was able to actually do this in a state that he was visiting when he went to go see family, which is pretty cool. But one thing that, like, let's say you're out in the woods and you're in that field in the middle of nowhere and you start to see something kind of odd in the sky. Stop. Take a minute. Look at it. Does it look like a satellite? No. Is it moving? No. Does that look like a plane? Does it follow the trajectory that a plane would take? Could that be, oh, Dave, what are the name of those things that people have now that are super popular? You can buy them at Costco. Drones?
Yes, the drones.
Does it look Yeah, does it look like a drone? Is it moving in a flight pattern that could possibly be that? No. And start actually, yes, you can dissect it in your mind. But if you finally come to that conclusion of, hey, look, I've been staring at this thing in the sky for 10 minutes. There's no way it's a star. There's no way it's a plane. There's no way it's whatever. Then you are able to also send it a message in your mind. Hey, can you come closer? Can you move to the left? Can you move up? Can you move down? Anything like that. Because if you are actually connecting with an ET craft and it has benevolent beings inside, they will be able to hear you, because when you're looking at them and you're thinking something towards them, they are picking up on your thought patterns. So do be a little more mindful of your thoughts. If they start to sense that you are becoming fearful, they may end up going away, which is completely normal, in which case say thank you and allow for it to come again. But don't be surprised if when you're driving on the highway heading back home, you see that craft cross the highway, which can be a little bit mind-boggling. Now, if it's nighttime, you can do something very, very similar. This is where it's really fun to have, let's say, going out into the middle of the woods like we did and have one of those green lasers where if you think it's a star, you can point your laser at it and do a pattern, whether it's Morse code or some really fun pattern, you name it. And often you'll see these craft replicate the pattern that you send towards them. And like, let's say I go beep, beep, blank, beep. They would go beep, beep, beep. Do you see what I'm saying?
I totally do. And on that note, we're going to get ready to hop out here for our break here at the top of the hour. You're listening to Space Out Radio. Samantha Mowat is our guest tonight. The ET Experience happens the second Tuesday of every month. We will be right back after this.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries, so tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mowat. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Reveal Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness. You can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Tomorrow night on the show, the Crypto Guru is back. Ronald Murphy will be with us for the full 3 hours tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, as we talk everything cryptid through 2016. If you're listening in on the United Public Radio Network live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 160 countries around the world, thank you for tuning us in tonight, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are in your time zone. Revolution Radio is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Monocotyledonous. Monocotyledonous. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. He tries to make me butcher it every single night, but that is the password for you space travelers tonight on the mighty SOR. Remember, if you're a social media junkie like I am, follow me on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram. I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features. Yes, a plethora of features for you to go through, including Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, the official music of Spaced Out Radio. His music is all over the board. You can sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club and much more. Tonight we are talking with Samantha Mowat, the ET Experience. Samantha comes on this show the second Tuesday of every month. Samantha, welcome back.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
We have a special guest here, too. Mrs. Spaced Out Radio is making her debut on this show. It's only been like 2 years and 2 weeks. You've never been on this program.
I've never been on this program. That's true.
I know. And Samantha's here.
I know. I'm so excited. Hi, Sam.
You know, everybody here has been asking when you were going to make an appearance, because they hear all my stories and you can pretty much confirm all of them.
I can.
And
it's true.
And Samantha can as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know. So I want to take a couple of minutes here because little SOR, he's a little rambunctious tonight and he's still running around upstairs. But I got to tell you, it was... Oh, Joe's already mentioning he wants some of your pancakes. Yes. Mrs. SOR makes a great pancake. And they don't suck up the syrup, which is really nice. Anyhow,
Ooh.
Yes, you throw a little bacon on there and it's just perfection. Not going to lie. Anyways, you were with me 5 years ago tonight. And it's actually around this time when all of a sudden, well, let's go back 3 hours. My mom and dad are over. We're celebrating Christmas early with my daughter, because she is going on a cruise with her maternal grandparents over the Christmas break. And I see the angel of death in my mother's eyes. Do you remember that moment?
I do.
And what happened was, for those of you who were tuning in for the first time, at about 7:45 p.m., 5 years ago today, I walked in from my living room into our kitchen, and that's kind of where we had a sitting room with the television and everything. And what happened then was I walked in because my parents announced that they were leaving. My mother had been battling some health problems over recent years. She had colon cancer, she had breast cancer, and chemotherapy had really beat her up physically. And I walked into the kitchen. And as I walked into the kitchen, I realized that everyone was standing still and there was absolutely no sound on the TV. Everything was quiet. And I'm about 1.5 feet from my mother when I looked into her beautiful blue eyes, and her eyes were jet black. And her pupils were white as something was looking back at me. And right then and there, I knew I was looking into the eyes of the angel of death. I could feel it. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. I immediately wanted to cry because I just knew. And what happened then was, as I'm looking into my mother's eyes, I remember I cocked my head a little bit to the right, kind of like, am I seeing what I'm seeing? And my mother had all of a sudden this look of shock on her face. It kind of was like, oh, you see me. And then in an instant, my mother shook her head. The sound on the television went on. Everybody started talking. And I'm looking at my mother, and her eyes are blue again. She then hugged me like nothing had went on. I gave her a kiss on the cheek, and I immediately walked down our hallway to the bedroom. Well, Mrs. SOR saw me all of a sudden take off. And she came rushing down the hallway saying, what's wrong? And I said, I just saw the angel of death in my mother's eyes. What were you feeling when you saw that? What was your opinion?
I didn't really see her eyes change. However, you were as white as a sheet, a ghost.
It was emotional.
You were very, very white. You looked like you had seen a ghost.
It was weird. So 3 hours after this incident, we go in. The kids are now asleep in their rooms. It's like 10 o'clock, like it is right now, Pacific time. And we literally go into our living room. We have 2 couches. We have a love seat, which I was sitting on. Then we had our table, and then we had the big couch where Mrs. SOR was sitting. And she had lit a couple of white candles in the middle of the table. And what happened then was she's like, I think you should relax and just try and remember everything and talk to me about the play-by-play almost of what had happened. And at that point, I had never even heard, Samantha, of channeling, didn't know what it was, didn't understand. Do you remember that point?
Vaguely, because it was 5 years ago, so, I mean, my memory is kind of iffy on some of it, but, yes, it was interesting, that's for sure.
So, what happened was, and I'll stir your memory up a little bit as I rub your temples.
Stir it. Stir it, baby.
What happened? Flirting on these. Oh, wow. Okay. Anyhow, what happened was I relaxed, and wifey here decided to start asking me some questions. What I saw, what I remembered of it. And then I seemed to go into like a trance. And you were like, I remember you saying, Dave, are you here?
Yes, that was very odd. It was like something just kind of like took over for you and you weren't even there. You were just kind of talking in like a monochromatic voice.
I don't remember it. I remember vague parts of it now, but I think you taped some of it, did you?
Yes, I did tape some of it.
And you lost it on your old iPhone.
Yes, I did.
That's right. Yes, we actually did have tape of that.
We love the updates for iPhones.
Yes. So what happened was the angel of death, I channeled. And basically what he said was that I was not supposed to see him. I was not supposed to be aware that he was around. And that he was, in all sense and purposes, pissed off at the way my family had been treating my mother. Because my mother was, I guess you could call her a hypochondriac.
Yes,
You
very
know?
much so.
Yeah, she's a hypochondriac. And she loves sympathy. And so what was happening was, we as a family were not showing my mother any sympathy. So what the angel of death said through me to Mrs. SOR as she was kind of interviewing him was that I was not supposed to see him. But because I did, he felt he owed an explanation as to what we saw. And that was, my mother truly was ill. My mother truly was feeling horrible as a person, basically wanted to die. But if we as a family did not start showing my mother more love and respect and more caring and nurturing for the experiences she was having on a physical level, that he was going to take her home. And one of the things I remember, Mrs. SOR, was he didn't say heaven. He didn't say hell. He said, take her home.
Yes, that's correct.
And what was the mood like in the room that night? Because I was kind of out of it.
The mood when we were channeling?
Yes.
It was very calm. Yeah, it was very calm. And I was able to ask a bunch of questions and get some answers.
What was that like for you, though? Like, was it strange? Was it...
It was a little strange. It felt, the energy was just calm. It was kind of, I'm not too sure how to describe it in so many words. Because I'm I'm a talker with my hands. So,
people can see that on the radio.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes. Samantha, feel free to jump in with any questions here that you may have, and people in our audience, feel free to jump in as well. And if you're on Twitter, #SpacedOutRadio if you have any questions that you want to ask.
I guess it was weird because your voice was it wasn't your voice. It was like somebody else's voice. And you were very
just calm and not yourself. Your voice was almost deeper.
Well, typically when people end up channeling archangels or any angel of a higher vibration, they will end up having their voice change because of the massive amount of energy coming into their physical body, acting as a medium or a form of telephone between the person communicating with the archangel and the archangel using the human's voice so they can communicate their message.
That would make sense.
And it was very, very intriguing. Rhonda on Twitter, thank you so much. Wow, what a story, she says. Thank you for listening in. One of the things that I remember about it was that if we followed what he said, which was get on the phone, get a hold of my sisters, my grandmother, my father, and tell them what had happened. Explain to them that if we don't start showing Mom more love and caring, that we may not have long with her.
Yep.
And he was adamant about that. You know, he was adamant that I wasn't supposed to see him. You know, and you look now, Samantha, well, let's see. We ran into him again when your grandmother passed away.
Yes.
That was
you
kind of
saw him.
That
I
was
did not.
That was kind of intense. We have seen Bigfoot. You've had a Bigfoot experience.
Yes, I've seen Bigfoot.
I've seen 2 of them. We've seen many extraterrestrials spiritually and with our own eyes open.
Yes.
So this is the lady here, and Samantha, you know her all too well, but our audience doesn't. Believe it or not, Samantha, our audience knows you more than they know Jolene here.
Dave's talking with his hands right now.
It's
quite funny.
I always talk with my hands.
He's like our audience here on the computers.
Exactly. What
but it's a shame. It really is, Dave, a shame that they do not know Mrs. Spaced Out Radio better.
They should.
Thanks, guys.
They should. You know.
Maybe she should have maybe a night every month where she can end up doing readings.
Ooh, how fun would that be?
She is very talented that way.
She would be. I think she'd do great at it. But it's interesting that such a strong experience helped to open you up on more of a, let's say, not only metaphysical level and psychic level, but on a paranormal level as well, inviting these new experiences into your life.
Hey, Bill. How's it going?
Bill Cardwell in the in the chat room. Hold on. If you are calling in to Space Out Radio right now, I am going to tell you we do not take phone calls on this show. You have to go into one of the chat rooms and type in your question in capital letters so that way we can read it. So, or if you're on Twitter, hashtag Spaced Out Radio like Rhonda did, and we will get to that as well. But I do want to say, you know, this is like a real anniversary for us here, Samantha, because if I would have known 5 years ago tonight, from this exact moment, where we would be today, there's no way I could have written this script. I don't think there's any way Jolene could have written this script either. It's been intense. It's
totally intense.
It's been a whirlwind. There's been days where we have, you know, discussed deeply about these experiences, where we've laughed, we've cried, we have not been able to understand, we've argued, we've done absolutely everything that couples do in regards to this. And it just seems that, you know, some days you seem so far ahead of the game, but other days, you seem so far away.
Yeah, and you just question everything because you're like, what the heck? Did I just see what I saw? Or what the heck? Yeah. It's been an interesting journey, that's for sure.
Well, it makes you question everything that you truly believe about life and what you've been programmed to believe and the values that your family have tried to very generously and lovingly bestow upon you, based upon their experiences and their knowledge of this world. So it can really shake things upside down.
Oh, it did. It did, for sure.
Well, it's another thing, too, because all of a sudden we're going through all these experiences, And now you have to watch the children and see what their reactions were. So when we started this, our oldest was only 12, yet she has been seeing spirits her entire life, so it was nothing new to her. Our middle daughter, well, she didn't start seeing things until she was 7 or 8.
Well,
2010.
Well, that's when she admitted to actually seeing things.
Yes.
Right?
Which now it is included not only spirits, but fairies as well.
Yeah.
And now, maybe you want to tell the story about the little guy.
Yes, Colby likes to... Oh, the little guy...
We don't mention the names on here, lady.
No!
It's no big deal. Just roll with it. Don't worry.
Okay, I'm rolling. Little SOR, pardon me, he likes to stare off into the doorways sometimes, and when he's done that, I've been like, what is he looking at? And then all of a sudden, I see kind of a blue, kind of like, I don't know what it is. It's just like the shape of a person, or not full form. I just see like an energy. A blue
like
energy.
An energetic outline or something.
Yeah, sometimes a little purplish, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because I don't know if I wanted him to see.
But that's not your choice, so why would you try to dictate that?
Well, it's not that I was trying to dictate it. It was more just trying to
protect your child?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, he's got more important things to worry about, like Legos and toys and you know, chasing
and the new Lego
dogs
Batman
around.
And
movie.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yes, he loves Rudolph. But, okay, I just have to get to one question here, Samantha. And where is here? Ron in Saskatchewan, who sent me that nice drink holder there that's sitting on my mantle. Thank you, Ron, for the Christmas present. I hope you have your watermelon on your head, Saskatchewan Roughriders fan. He is asking, Mrs. SOR, you have to tell a funny story about Dave Scott.
Agreed.
Oh, goodness.
Hey, you stop there, redhead. You stop there. You're just trouble.
Oh, no.
Oh, goodness.
I know
this
she's
is really
full of 'em.
putting me on the spot. I'm already nervous enough as it is. Like, I already screwed up once. Like, you really want me to tell a funny story? Let's see.
Let's keep it to the radio topics, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, how about let's talk about my pancakes and my healthy pancakes that I made the one day.
That's not a radio topic.
Well...
Oh, yes, they do know about your diet effing pancakes.
Yes, he refused to eat my diet pancakes.
But on a spiritual or a strange level, what do you think is probably the weirdest or funniest story?
I don't know that there's, like, funny stories, per se. It's just weird more than funny, I would say. Right? Just weird. Especially channeling. When he channels, it's just... It's like another person takes over for him. Which, I guess, essentially it is. But his voice goes all deep and everything. And he's not Dave Scott anymore. I don't even know how to... I don't even know how to recreate the voice you make, because, yeah.
He does typically go deeper when he does channeling. He does speak a lot slower and more precisely in more of a calculated tone. And Dave tends to be someone who likes to speak quite emotionally, and that is not what comes through when he does channeling. In my experience.
Wow,
Yes.
Really? I'm learning all this stuff. I got to get into this girl talk a little bit more often here. What else do I need to know?
Oh, the things we can't mention on radio.
Exactly, because we can't even mention pancakes, because, geez.
And how exciting are pancakes? But getting back to some interesting stories regarding Dave, seeing as we're going to focus on that one for a few. When I first met Dave, I believe it was on your last phone, you had this really fun ghost app. Whenever it would detect a ghost or any form of paranormal activity, your phone would take a picture. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. That's how I got the picture of the Elmo ghost.
Yeah, it was quite interesting, wasn't it?
It was.
So
Go ahead.
it makes you wonder when you see little ones that are staring off into doorways or across the room or at something, you're like, hey, what are you looking at? They could very well be seeing interdimensionally at these various beings that are sharing the same space as us, but operating on a different vibrational frequency.
That could be. And Bill has slapped me down about making the comment and calling you a redhead. Because he's a redhead as well.
You knew I like Bill. Good man. Good man.
He's like, leave the redheads alone. Claudia has or I'm going to get to Vivian's comment here. She goes, Elmo ghost. Well, as Samantha said, I had this phone app that was like a ghost detector. And when it sensed a ghost, it would take a photo. So I just picked it up and I put it randomly towards my stairwell. And all of a sudden it takes this picture, and I'm going to try and find it because I lost it somehow. And I'm going to post it if I can find it. And it was a picture of this red outline. Now, my first thought on it was, okay, this is a ghost app. Maybe it's making up something. But then I realized that it was leaning against my railing. Okay? It was leaning against the railing so tightly that the railing was actually blocking out some of the red. Now, if it was a ghost app, it would have pasted it right on top of the mantle, or the railing, pardon me. Whereas this one was showing that it was actually behind, because you could see the railing actually blocking part of the red, and in between the, well, what do they call those things? Those pillars. The pillars. It was actually, the pillars were actually blocking part of the red out as well, which was really, really cool. So that kind of convinced me that maybe some of these ghost apps are real. I do have a question from Claudia, and this one's for you.
Ooh.
Claudia, who asks the most amazing questions, says, how did you get used to having ET contact? Were you very frightened the first time? When they visited our little guy, does it scare you? Or are you comfortable with it?
Believe it or not, I am comfortable with it, and I've never I've never been made to feel uncomfortable with it, and I think it's just normal, just because Dave has had so many experiences, and I don't know, I see their eyes all the time, just in the oddest places, but I'm not scared of them. I would be more scared to see an actual apparition of a person than I am of seeing an extraterrestrial, which is kind of bizarre, but if I saw a apparition, I think I would literally crap my drawers. So, ETs, bring them.
She's brave. She's brave, Samantha.
I hear that. Very brave. But I'm inclined to agree with her based upon my experiences with a lot of people that are having difficulty after they die, making that transition from being on this plane to suddenly finding themselves not talking to their guides, not surrounded by their loved ones, and all of a sudden no one can see you, no one can hear you, but the odd person who's now panicking or, I see a ghost, or trying to drink or numb their pain away. It could be a very frustrating thing for a lot of these beings. And so as a result, they tend to become more hostile and frustrated and very pushy in a slight aggressive way with wanting for their needs to be met, over taking into consideration the needs of the person they're contacting. So yes, ETs are easier to deal with. I'm inclined to agree with Mrs. SOR.
So what was it like, Julie?
Dave.
In regards to when our little guy was young and you and him had contact. Explain what that was like for our audience.
It was fairly natural, actually, and I don't think he was scared, and I don't remember waking up scared. I don't remember, but I know we were taken. And I don't remember feeling threatened or anything in any way, because I'm pretty sure that if they had tried anything on him, I would have been up in somebody's, grill.
But yeah, I don't ever remember feeling threatened or anything. It's been very peaceful and always kind of like a peaceful and loving way when they take me, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Karen has a question for you. And she is saying, how did Jolene adjust to moving rurally and possible more UFO contact where we live now? And any changes from our previous location?
Rurally, I am totally cool with, because I am from way up north in the northern
territory
of the Yukon. So, being away from people and everything, well, not as many people, totally cool with that. So who knows, maybe I was taken there too, I'm not sure, because there are UFO reports all around the Yukon as well. So
the Yukon is a hotbed. I've been trying for a couple of years to get somebody on from the Yukon who investigates, Samantha, and they just don't want to talk on the show. They just don't want to talk on there, and I'm not sure why.
It probably has to do with the community and what could get back to them. They are typically smaller communities, Dave, and that could be an issue for them. Reputation and sharing information, inviting outsiders in may not be something they're looking for.
Exactly, because, yeah, the communities are quite small. It's just like a lot of the smaller communities in BC as well.
I agree.
Another question from Karen. Do you feel children are being watched before they get abducted? Samantha, would you like to answer that one?
I'll let Jolene go first, and then I will definitely answer.
I definitely think we are being watched for sure. I definitely think they are being watched, because I can see the eyes on us, around us sometimes. So
see, and I don't see them.
Yeah, well, but you are not as intuitive that way as I am.
True. Samantha, what do you think about children? Are they watched?
Undoubtedly, if you listen to many children who are growing up in contactee families, they will mention that they see energetic outlines, or they will see beings or eyes or something at different locations, whether it's at a friend's house or in the backyard. These children are often very aware of the different energetic beings that are coming to see them, whether they are positive or negative. And if you actually genuinely listen to these children, they will tell you what beings have been coming around during the daytime or the evening. And that is part of why it's necessary to put up energetic protection to keep your family safe.
Do you or have you heard of children having negative ET abductions?
Yes, many. That is part of the fear where a lot of people who have contact with non-benevolent beings, so malevolent, they will have a lot of underlying sexual fear of being raped, fear of being abducted and raped, or being sexually violated. And many times this is not a repressed memory from childhood from someone that they encountered that was human. It can often be a memory that they have held over from an ET experience if it's with negative beings.
What would a negative being want with a child? To me, that just sounds so vile.
It is, but for some beings, they do eat our energy. Their form of substance is not having pasta and veggies and fruits and meat like ours. Some of them eat energy. And the highest form of energy in which you are able to eat if you are a lower dimensional being is to eat loosh, which is the fear-based energy that humans often release when they're panicking, fearing for their life, or being violated. And unfortunately, children are able to release a much more pure form of this energy than adults. That is why they are the target, as are very innocent adult humans. Sorry for the negative thing.
No, but are they almost like psychic vampires?
Yes, very much so.
And what would they do with a child's energy? Would they appreciate that more for their own usage, considering that it is more of a pure energy?
They would end up getting more fulfilled from that energy. Dave, what's going to keep you full more? A delicious, in your case, bacon cheeseburger, or a light salad? What is going to keep you full longer and allow you to do what you need to do in a day and in a month?
Bacon.
Bacon?
Dave wants the bacon.
That's
Sorry,
not even a fair question.
No, but reality of the matter is we as adults typically have many of our chakras being very low as far as their operating function is concerned. The amount of expendable energy we have, because stress makes us have less energy, decreased sleep gives you less energy, using drugs, alcohol, sugar, caffeine, those all decrease your energetic body and decrease the amount of energy you have available. Yes, you produce a lot more fear typically than a child, but a child does not have the same degrees of stress. Therefore, when the child is placed under a mode of fear, they are able to release a much more large amount of this fear-based energy known as loosh.
Mm.
Can we go on something lighter, please? I really don't like
Sure.
focusing on that before bed.
Sure.
Thank you.
Would you like to answer a question about breeding? Or are you good without that one? I'll
That's
leave that
fine.
up to you. Okay. Karen is asking, Samantha or Jolene, do you feel that you have been used as breeders for harvesting of your eggs here, off-planet, or by my labs?
You first, my darling.
That's a really good question. I don't think so. Not for me, anyways. I just feel like I've been more observed. I'm not sure what they're observing on me yet, but I just feel like I'm being taken to be observed. I don't get any negative vibes that they're harvesting things from me or anything, so.
In regards to me, yes, I have. I've had, from the best of my recollection, also children taken from me as well. Typically by ETs, some that I believe were in conjunction with military for my lab experience and tracking, but none from benevolent sources. They have respected my body and respected me.
Samantha, Claudia is asking a question. She is asking, well, she says, I can see forms a lot of times. How would I know if one is an ET or a ghost or an angel? Is there a particular energy with a form you can see that will distinguish an extraterrestrial presence?
So, Claudia, let's say you're watching TV or you're doing dishes or whatever, and you see this black energetic outline at the corner of your eye. If you see that, you can know right away that that is a lower dimensional being, something that's energy is not of a higher vibration like an angel or a spirit guide, or typically a benevolent extraterrestrial or multidimensional. If you see a clear energetic form, like something that looks like it's partially opaque, you can slightly see through it, but looks like it's either foggy or just like an odd clear outline, that is typically something that is masking its energy, and that would be a multidimensional, non-angelic being. Angelic beings are interesting, because when you see an angelic being's energy, it typically looks like a light being. You may see a head of the head, or you may see the full body outline. It will look like it's very bright. You'll have the sense of peace and love right away. If you're encountering a multidimensional or extraterrestrial energy, you will have that sense beforehand of being watched, of something being in your space. There may be a sense of slight unease if you're not familiar with the energy, depending upon that extraterrestrial or multidimensional and its intentions towards you, Claudia. That will determine how you feel. If it's something that means you good and is just observing you, you will feel like you're being watched, but it won't feel like a bad thing. If it has ill intent towards you and it is watching you and you're starting to see it moving around, that means that it's not being as cautious with its energetic vibration and frequency, and is, well, getting an idea of how you interact within its presence. When it comes to many of these things, they can come in a whole range of colors. But typically, if it's a light being or an angelic being, it will be white or gold with underlining hues, depending upon the typical vibration that angelic being is operating within. So when you start to get to know the different archangels and their energetic signatures, you will see white with Michael, but you will see a slight purpley blue tinge to it, or you might see a tall bluey white being moving around. Same can be said about the other angels. Raphael has a slight green tinge to him. Jophiel has a slight pinky orangey tinge. So it really depends upon who you're interacting with and who's checking in on you as to what you're going to see and perceive. My best bet when I see something, if I'm not sure, I grab a piece of paper, I grab my kids' crayons and I start drawing out exactly what I saw. And you don't critique it as you're doing it. You just write down every detail, draw every detail, because afterwards you're able to look at this and go, okay, this is what I saw. How do I feel about the being I saw?
Claudia has a follow-up comment. She says, a lot of times the form will not fully materialize, but you know something is there. She says she has seen a ghost materialize once, but she has also seen other forms not materialize, but still knew they were present.
Well, Claudia, that would be your clairvoyance and your mediumship coming through, because you are naturally having these gifts come forward. My recommendation for you is to not only start writing these things down, but to start looking for various ways to develop those two gifts. You having these multidimensional beings coming around means that they are naturally very interested in you. Your vibration is higher than that of most people, and your curiosity in what is going on in the world around you on more of a supernatural level and psychic level is part of why they're being intrigued by your vibration and coming into your presence, both good and bad.
Question from Dave on Facebook. He is asking, what animals are more able to see or sense dimensional beings?
All sorts. Typically with my German Shepherd, if I'm having beings in my house that she is not familiar with, or ones that she does not feel are safe for our family, because animals can sense this quite quickly. They can sense energy and vibration. She will bark and be very protective and go between me and my family members and just do a lot of laps around the house trying to figure out exactly where this is coming from and what it is doing. That is the benefit of having animals such as dogs. Cats do see them, and that's part of why you see cats looking off into the distance and kind of staring at things and then looking away and then staring off in another direction. When you can kind of feel that energy of something that they're aware of and looking at, but they don't care enough to actually get up, which is one thing I've noticed with cats. When it comes to animals such as farm animals, I haven't noticed a difference. Although granted, I have not lived on a farm in over 10 years. So,
do you think animals know or sense when somebody is going to be taken?
Oh, I would say so, yes.
Is there anything an animal, as protective as they are to their human companion, can stop or allow it to happen?
The non-benevolent extraterrestrials and multidimensionals are not a big fan of people who have dogs, let alone multiple dogs that are large. Because typically these dogs will give their owners warning if there is something outside or intending to move around the home. So yes, these animals can act as a deterrent, although there are certain extraterrestrial races, such as some varieties of the Greys and some ET technology that can make it so the animal just goes to sleep. So it really depends upon the being that's interacting with you and what that being's technology at hand is and psychic capabilities are. But we could probably talk about that for a good 3 or 4 hours, Dave.
Well, I don't mind spending about another 10 minutes on it. Do you have time?
Maybe.
Oh, excellent.
Now, okay. So think of it this way. As we've discussed in the past, there are different forms of ETs that actually use technology to amplify their psychic abilities, as we discussed in the last time you had me on. The Greys that had me on the astral realm, going into these buildings, using that form of wand-like device and having these animals follow me. Well, if I walked into a vet office today and I were to open up all the cage doors, those animals would not all follow me out into the woods for a couple kilometers to an ET craft, would they? But the technology that some of these beings have, they can use that to affect the way in which the animal's mind is, putting them in a docile state, putting them in a trance-like state, much as they do with various humans, either with their psychic abilities. So these beings using their psychic abilities to make the person in a docile state or a blank state, which is why you see some people sleepwalking. They can do very similar things to animals, where you could wake up and know you're about to be taken. And depending upon the being, which I hate to go back to the Greys again, but some forms of Greys do have the ability to use their psychic abilities to put animals in a very deep sleep. So no matter how much you shake them or rub their belly, they are not going to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
However, ones that don't have as strong of technology, or let's say don't necessarily have that technology at hand, such as, well, I hate to say it again, but other forms of Greys or different I know Zeta Reticula are really big into using technology to amplify their psychic abilities, but I know some of the worker or quote-unquote cloned greys do not have the same tools at hand, especially now if they're going to collect a human for reptilians or if they're going to collect a human for my lab experiences. Some people only remember being taken by a being, such as a grey. They may not remember the encounter beyond that. And in which case, let's say that person does have a dog. And let's say it's a lab. Well, a lab typically would have a more calm disposition to it naturally, even with intruders, than, say, a German Shepherd or a Pit Bull, purely based upon their nature, so to speak, and their protective nature. So depending upon if that person has one of the more quote-unquote aggressive breeds or protective breeds, the ETs that are coming to see that person may need different tools.
It always amazes me that when we were on the farm, and a very special place that was back in the day, when we walked into the forest, the 4 dogs walked in before us, and they disappeared.
Well, that's the technology or the psychic abilities I'm talking about, Dave. These beings are able to affect more than just humans, but the only downside is most humans are too narcissistic to only look at how it affects them rather than the implications or practical applications that using these abilities or using these devices can have on more than just us. And that's part of where it's difficult. One thing I've noticed is when I had a lot of cats growing up, if I was about to be taken, I never knew where my cats were. I half the time didn't hear any of the dogs because when I lived at my mom's, we had typically 2 or 3 dogs in a time. A German Shepherd, a Bouvier, and, oh God, a very huge mixed one that looked like a wolf. And not once when we were having these encounters did I hear our dogs. And these are incredibly protective animals that protected this farm. To me, that implies psychic abilities and technology to get them to not be responsive to these beings coming out. So,
when we have animals who are in communication, say telepathically, like the 4 dogs were that day when you and I had our experience together, do you find that they listen just as they would to a human, or do you think they sense fear, or maybe this is a place where they're not supposed to intervene? What do you think goes through that animal's head?
Well, it depends on the message that the being is trying to convey to the animal. With the dogs, the way that we had them, I don't think those beings would sense a vibration of fear to them. I didn't notice a vibration of fear at all in that encounter. But would I put it past them to put the let's say the vibration of a cat or a rabbit over towards the field and have them all go running off and playing that way? No, I wouldn't put it past them at all because they are masters of energy and vibration. One thing I've noticed when I shoot my YouTube videos is my dog will often, let's say I notice white beings walking around, whether it's light beings or whatever. She will end up seeing these things moving the same way that I will. She typically notices them about 2 seconds or 5 seconds before I do. And to me, that means that she and other animals are capable of seeing on a multidimensional level. And as a result, that means that they are able to determine the presence of these beings and they are able to read their energy and figure out how they choose to react. So
it's still amazing. What about cats? Because literally, I mean, cats are just a pissed off animal. Okay, they're just upset because it's Tuesday night at 10:47 p.m. in the middle of winter and it's cold. That's just enough to upset a cat. Do cats even care?
Not typically, in my experience. Cats, from what I've noticed, they tend to be able to see these beings, to sense these beings, but I haven't noticed a strong reaction between the cats and multidimensional or ET encounters, or the dog, versus the dog and the way she perceives them. So
do you think it's then the connection between man or woman's best friend being the dog rather than a cat who is more of an individual?
Cats are very independent, and they don't tend to be affected by what's going on around them as much as a dog, who, as you said, is incredibly loyal, but they tend to regard everything very, very differently. Dogs have this innate instinct to protect. Cats do not. Cats have this instinct to survive on their own. Everything else can come later. You are replaceable. You're human.
Yes, gotta love cats. Gotta love cats.
I love cats.
Oh, I
Dave.
love them too. They're beautiful.
Oh, yes, sure they are. Karen wants to know, Samantha, what has attracted you to the towns that you have lived in? Was it something psychically that brought you there, or was it something a little bit more normal?
To the current location, something more normal. My husband got a job here, so we moved here. It's where work posted him. But in the past, before we were with the company that he's with, we moved around. And when we felt, have you ever lived somewhere and then you wake up and then you feel, I don't feel like I belong here anymore. I feel really drawn to this place or that place. And then you move there and you stay there as long as the energy is really conducive for it. But then you feel that pull to move somewhere else because you no longer feel like that's the right location for you. We tend to follow energy, and we weren't aware of that for a long time. That my husband and I we first moved to Victoria, and we felt like we had accomplished everything we needed to do in Victoria, and really felt the urge to go back to being forest firefighters after our first year of being together. And then when that was done, we didn't feel the urge or the energy leading us back to Victoria. We felt a pull towards somewhere else. So we've always kind of been transient and follow the energy where it leads us to go. Yes, it is a very psychic way of living, but it's hard now that we're trying to do things on a more normal platform.
See, we felt the same way when we moved north. When we made that decision that this was something that we were going to commit to.
Yes.
When we first drove into the valley here, which is literally on top of a volcano. Mm-hmm. From the time we started making the descent into the town and we first saw the town lights, it felt like home. Jolene had never been here before. I hadn't been to this place in 22 years. Mm-hmm. And it was just something that just felt natural. It felt right. Spiritually, it felt grounding and connected. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, the energy here is so amazing. Actually, as soon as you get out of the valley where we were living, as soon as you leave that area, the energy, all of a sudden, it just clears and you feel light. Whereas before where we were living, it was a stressful. heavy and stressful energy. And then as soon as you get here, you're like, oh!
Love that pitch. That's awesome.
Yes.
But I agree with you. It's being surrounded by nature, not having that same energetic pollution from not only people, but the electromagnetic pollution and the things that are associated with that, which do drain your energetic body and make you more tired. So that's okay.
Yes, and Dave loves the deer. He just loves them here. They're delightful.
I do. It's one of those things where I think you need to be able to get in touch with the surroundings around you. Now, I think the only thing that kind of upsets me about living up here is that my contact really has been non-existent.
They're still around. You're just busy.
I'm way too busy.
You're busy, but it's okay. They're around.
And when you're really busy, it's common for contact to go way down.
Well, exactly. Otherwise, or maybe you are having contact, you just don't know it because you're too busy to actually notice it.
Gotcha.
Maybe at nighttime, when you're sleeping, you never know. Stranger things have happened, I'm sure.
Exactly, and that's the thing with contact is if you're really stressed and you are very busy, you may have joint experiences with other people and they may remember it and you may not, which is quite a common thing for contactees.
Let's get to a question from Claudia here. It says, seems wherever she moves to a new home, she has hundreds of birds that flock with her. Her neighbors even notice it. Is there any connection with the messages from birds and messages from the extraterrestrials? And can birds feel ET presence?
depending upon the ET race, yes, undoubtedly, some can feel ET presence. Extraterrestrials, in my experience, outside of owls, which seem to have a very odd connection towards beings such as greys, typically archangels and angels tend to use birds as messages more than ETs. But birds are, like many other beings, able to sense the change in energy because a lot of extraterrestrials have a very foreign energy, and depending upon whether that extraterrestrial being eats meat or eats birds, they may sense that predator energy within that being, which can cause them to have a sense of alarm.
So do you think then that in Claudia's situation that maybe the birds are like almost like a mapping sign showing where they have gone or where they have ended up?
Possibly, but I would say with Claudia, it's probably because of her vibration being something those birds are completely comfortable with. They probably just absolutely love her energy and the way that she is. It may be part of her life's mission to help those animals in particular, or she may have incarnated as something that tended to birds or really took a love for that kind of animal, and that's why they're so heavily focused with her. You got to remember, there are ET races that are part bird being, and Claudia, because you have such a strong interest in the paranormal, that could be an indication that you've had lives as a partial bipedal bird type being, and that is why they're connecting so heavily with you versus other humans who don't have that strong connection that you share with these birds.
And on that note, we are down to our final few seconds here before we take a break. And, afterwards, we should go with what Debbie says as well, and that is owls. We should maybe break down owls after this, Samantha.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be interesting. So, and you know what? It's unfortunate, but we're going to say goodnight to Jolene.
Oh, good night, Jolene. I'll talk to you soon.
Good night, everyone.
Yes. You just sang that. You know that.
Oh, did I? Well, hey,
Yes. This is actually the first time Mrs. SOR has been on the air with me, so it's kind of cool. On that note, we're going to hop out for a break here on Spaced Out Radio. 1 hour left with the ET Experience with Samantha Mowat coming up right around the corner.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Space Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Final hour of tonight's program is underway with Samantha Mowat. Before we bring Sam back in, I do want to remind you, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time tomorrow night, Ronald Murphy will join us. Yes, the crypto guru will be back for his final appearance of 2016. Wow, that's weird to say. Man, 2016 is flying by. And you know what? I'm glad. Good riddance with this year. We've lost too many music legends, too many people this year. Let's just get rid of this year and start anew in just exactly 18 days. Let's go for it. You and me. Remember, if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor. Visit freedomslips.com and donate today. The United Public Radio Network has us live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you along for the ride, UPRN. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your programming. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight. Monocotyledonous. Monocotyledonous. I have no idea if I pronounced that right, but Bill sets the password each and every single night here on the Mighty SOR. So if you're a space traveler, make sure you use it wisely. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. And if you're on Twitter listening to the show and you want to get part of the chat, all you do is use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, check out the cool features that we have. We got a plethora of features that we want you to check out. It is a really cool site. I do say so myself. Built by Mrs. SOR. She's a computer genius around here. So make sure you send her a message saying, that's pretty damn cool. Samantha Mowat is our guest. Her website is samanthamowat.ca. She is our resident ET expert with the ET Experience. She comes on the second Tuesday of the month. The next time we will hear from Samantha is in 2017 on January 10th. Samantha, welcome back.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. And I look forward to getting a new year kicked off with you as well. I don't know what we're going to do for that show yet, but we'll worry about that then. Right before the break, we were talking about birds, thanks to Claudia's question. And we brought up owls right before we went to break. A lot of people believe owls are some sort of messenger, whether it's a words of wisdom, whether it is a connection to the extraterrestrial or ethereal realms. What is your opinion of owls?
Owls are something I have had with a few of my ET contacts, typically when beings are trying to disguise their appearance and project the image of an owl into your mind. And in my experience, yeah, they could be a messenger bird because it does seem to have a heavy association with greys. And one reason why I believe that could be is owls such as, if I'm not mistaken, the great horned owl is about 4 feet tall, lives in the prairies, and many people that have had experiences throughout the prairies mention that they see that variety of owl and then wonder afterwards, well, did I actually see that owl along the side of the road or in the field staring at me, or was that a being projecting that image? So yes, they could be a messenger bird, but they could also be ET's cloaking.
I have to tell you this. A week and a bit ago, I did my first paranormal investigation on my own. And when we were walking outside, the air was heavy. You could feel the spiritual activity all around. And then this snowmobile went by because, well, there's snow everywhere, which set off this owl. And this owl has never been heard by the residents who lived at this home. They never hear owls. And this guy would not stop. Finally, literally, no word of a lie, you can ask Heather and her husband Mike and Mike Schmidt, who is with me, my investigator with SOR. I finally kind of just said to the owl, nice and calmly, I said, hey, do you mind just keeping quiet for a couple of minutes, please? I told him what we were trying to do and what we were trying to feel. And he kept going. And I said, please, I would really appreciate it if you stopped hooting right now. And be damned if he didn't stop.
Well, they're not unreasonable beings. It makes sense that they would stop.
It just kind of tripped me out a little bit. because he was about, I'm going to say, 80 to 100 yards away.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing I've noticed with a lot of these birds. Birds are very interesting because they do seem to interact with multiple dimensions. They are able to be utilized by the angelic realm, so a very high vibrational being. But they also do tend to show up quite commonly when there are funerals or when there are people getting close to pass. You may see a lot of crows, or you may notice a lot of blackbirds hanging out when someone is close to passing. And I'm not sure entirely whether it's the energetic resonance that they are interpreting, or whether that when it comes to beings outside the angelic ones highly interacting, or outside of the ETs interacting with these beings, if lower dimensional beings are able to utilize birds. I know spirit guides can, but they tend to be a higher vibration as well.
So do you believe then that there is an extraterrestrial connection between people who are having contact or abduction experiences and owls being around them?
Yes, because typically wherever we live, we have owls near us.
I understand that, but a lot of people will say before they are taken, or they know when they're going to be taken that night, if all of a sudden they look out their bedroom window or down their driveway and there's an owl parked in the tree. A lot of people believe that the Greys have the ability to cloak themselves as owls.
Mm-hmm. I agree with those people with both statements, whether it's the owl being physically near them before they get taken, or whether it's the Greys cloaking as owls. In my experience, both are true.
So is that something any contactee should look out for, or does it only happen to a select few?
If it's a contactee that is dealing with Nordics or reptilians or Andromedans, I don't believe that owls would necessarily be as good of a messenger about what is coming up. But for those who do have contact with Greys or varieties of Greys or being similar to that physique, then yes, an owl could be an indication that you are about to have contact, or that you may be in the presence of a being cloaking. I've never, ever seen owls near, reptilians or Pleiadians or Arcturians or beings like that, or near light beings, or near smoke beings, but I have seen them near Greys.
Do you think that any other types of sightings can be put towards any other types of birds?
Possibly, although in my experience that's not necessarily the case. They're able to use a whole wide range of things to determine, showing that they are nearby to you. They don't necessarily have to get a bird to do their bidding or to cloak as a bird, because many of them, it's easier for them to appear invisible or partially opaque or an outline rather than appearing as a bird.
Is it just the ethereal connection that animals, because they are spiritually pure, have? Are they riding on a different plane than we are? And that goes from household pets right up to wild animals.
I believe they are much more spiritually pure than we are. They're not as tampered with, and they don't have the same degree of interference that humans have. So it does make sense that they can communicate and perceive other dimensions more easily than we do. We've all had that night where our dog is barking. We're like, why will you not stop barking? What are you barking at? I don't see anything. There's nothing outside. I don't sense anything. Yet your animal may be perceiving something beyond your sense capability. Dave, have your dogs ever done that, where they just bark for an hour or two for no good reason?
Well, Zero always barks. That's just who she is. My little Zero is a Chihuahua Dachshund cross, so imagine a Dachshund with the Chihuahua head, the Chihuahua tail, and the thin Chihuahua legs. She is funny looking, but, she's addicted to barking. Now, Doug, on the other hand, I know when he barks, something is up. And when he gets his hackles up, something is around. And that's going beyond someone just coming to our door and knocking. I remember standing outside of my patio one night after a show. It was a year ago in November. And I looked into my neighbor's yard because I was watching his head, because his hackles were up and he had that deep German Shepherd type of growl going on. I look in my neighbor's yard and there's a cougar walking by.
Well, that makes sense. But similar with different beings that are multidimensional or extraterrestrial that may have the same predatory energy as a cougar. A lot of people that have contact will have contact with both benevolent and malevolent beings, and their animals will typically be aware of these different beings' energies and will act accordingly. A dear friend of mine texted me a while ago saying that his dog could sense when different beings were around, in particular because he had a portal on his property, or there were several portals on his property, and so it felt like his dog was on guard 90% of the time. Which, when you think about how animals are, and I look at how having a dog has changed the contact that goes on in my house versus the contact that I had in Mission, where, well, it felt like everything in its friend could walk through my home there. Dave, you had been to that house. But my new home, it's quite well guarded, and I do feel that is in part because of my dog being such a, well, aware individual who's very protective.
When people are pet owners, do you believe then that they should maybe follow the nuances that the pet may show? Do you think that they should follow maybe the signs that a pet may have? Because we're trained as owners to say, or to watch what our pets are doing. Okay, if our dogs need to go outside, we know. We recognize the symbol. If they're hungry, we recognize the symbol. Yet, I don't know if we're fully trained to understand the signs, whether or not something paranormal is happening in the house or something extraterrestrial is happening in the house. What should we look for on our pets in order to see if there is communication with something on a different plane?
Well, let's say your dog ends up following, like walking around the house, and you can tell something's up because it can sense something. You can see that your dog's acting erratic and it's not wanting to go outside. It doesn't seem to want to be in a different room from you, and it keeps checking in on you constantly. That could be an indication that there is a being around your property or around your home. And let's say your dog does what mine does, where sometimes it'll go 5 or so feet from a corner and it will growl or it will bark or it will just stand at the door and be like, nope, whatever you are, you're not coming in here. And you can tell with the way the dog acts, in the sense that it could be pacing back and forth, looking in one direction. And this is not something my dog does to go outside. She knows to go down the stairs and ring her bell, which I know sounds a little bit silly, but that's part of what she does when she has to go outside. So that's not her saying, I have to go pee. You could also train your dog to be aware of when there's ETs. So if you are someone who does have the owls come around, and that is a sign that you're going to be taken, well, you're able to train your dog to, you could show your dog a picture of an owl or a feather of an owl, and they will pick up that scent, or they will pick up that image. And then you could explain to them to bark, or you can teach them different things to give you more of an indication of what's going on. With my dog, she's different because I told my guides before I even got her, I need something for keeping me and my family safe in general. And that is her job. When there are multidimensionals running around who are mischievous, because some of them are, and I'm out in a field and I'm shooting a YouTube video, if she sees this being running around and kind of circling a perimeter around me or trying to come closer and she doesn't want that, she will go between me and this being. So it is a matter of teaching your dog what appropriate action to do within these circumstances, just as easily as you can teach a dog to sit or to stand or to play.
So you've trained your dog to watch out for what you perceive as extraterrestrial contact?
She tends to notice it, whether I teach her or not. That was something I didn't have to teach her. But teaching her to come between negative energy or things that make me uncomfortable is something I was able to teach her to do. My dog has a very close link with me, which is part of why she does what she does. You can communicate with your dogs telepathically. We've all had moments where we swear we can look in our dog's eyes and know what they're thinking and know they understand us. And Dave, that's part of what you can do with them, is you can send the image from your mind into your dog's mind of, this is what I need you to look out for. when I wake up in the night and I sense ET contact or multidimensional contact that doesn't feel good, I will try to wake up my dog. And I will get her to come sit on the foot of my bed or to go sit on the bed of my children. And she will listen. That's the best part about her. You can train your dogs to do something similar.
See, and I have noticed with my dog, Doug, there are times where he does not want to leave this studio. And there are times, like, for instance, when Jolene was in here last hour, he was right here in with us. But the minute she left, he's like, okay, I can go now. But there are times when we do shows and topics where he doesn't want to leave the studio. And he lies down right behind me to the point where I can't even move my chair because I'll run over him.
Okay, that sounds familiar. That's like how my dog is.
So at that point, when we're discussing these topics, is he there for some sort of protection, or is he there because, well, he's just lazy and likes being downstairs by his master?
Well, that also depends on your dog. My dog is not lazy. Dave, I can't even walk to the bathroom without my dog following me, and if I close the door on her, she will lay there and whine to let me in. So depending upon what your connection is with your animal and what their purpose is within the family unit.
Do you think then that he sees that probably as his role?
Yes, I would believe so. Your dog is also a bigger dog, and in my experience, Doug is one of those dogs who does want to protect his family, especially small SOR or young SOR, whatever it is you'd like to call him.
Yes, the cool part about that is watching him. So, for instance, when I go upstairs, I leave my studio and I go upstairs, you know, he immediately greets me at the stairway, and then it's like, okay, are we going outside? No, we're not going outside. And then when I go off to bed, it's interesting to watch him because his protective instincts all of a sudden kick in. He has to go, and, you know, as much as the little guy absolutely drives him squirrely, he still knows, the dog that is, that he needs to check up on the little guy to make sure the little guy's okay. And then, you know, because our little guy, he usually will get up around 1:30, 2 o'clock. You know, he's a very light sleeper. You know, if we bring him into our bed for the night or something along those lines, then it's funny because Doug then goes and lays in his bed almost to be like, okay, well, I got to keep this place warm just in case the little guy comes back in. So it is kind of interesting to watch him on that.
Well, that and the dogs do also tend to have awareness of where are these beings most commonly going to. I notice my dog does a very similar thing with my children's beds. She will go lay in their bed, and then every half hour she's up and checking on everyone. And if I wake up and there's some form of shift in the energy, either in my home or around my home, I notice that the dog will, no matter where she's laying in the house, which is sometimes the living room, come walk down the hallway and come poke her nose under my pillow and saying, hey, wake up, what's going on? They're a very aware animal.
When we talk about contact, and we'll leave the animals to this point, actually, I'll ask one more question in regards to that. Never mind just the extraterrestrials. Can they tell when a UFO is coming by?
They'd be able to sense the vibration as well as us, if not better. Most humans are very numb to feeling the energy differences between what is normally around them and what is new. That is part of why you'll notice if you live on a road that's busy by any means, if a big truck goes down the road, you may not hear it, but you can kind of feel it. Well, your dog really feels it because they're more attentive to what is going on around them than you are. The same thing can be said for what energy is going on above your home in the sky. You can feel sometimes if a plane goes by, let's say at a lower altitude over your home. Well, you can, when you train yourself to start feeling the different ET craft energy signatures, whether it's a pulsating feeling or a spinning feeling or just that really alive and buzzing feeling, which a lot of craft has. If you can feel it, you know your dog can feel it, because dogs and cats are a lot more psychically aware than we give them credit for.
When it comes to people seeing craft, and we talked about this way back in hour number 1, but I want to expand on this a little bit. What is the difference, in your opinion, between people seeing satellites and actually seeing UFOs zipping by?
In my experience, when you see a satellite, you're able to not only track its trajectory, but you're able to predict what way it is going, how frequently that satellite is blinking, what colors that satellite has within its lights, because typically satellites will have the same colors. And if you're laying out in the night sky, you will be able to see when that satellite is coming and which directions typically they're going. And if you're somewhere for like a week, you can really get a good idea. Dave, do you remember that one time we were on your balcony and you're like, so I believe you said the space station will be crossing in 13 minutes or whatever it was. And then, like you said, hey, look, there's a space station going across slowly. Things like that, when you're used to living in an area, you can get used to the satellite flight patterns or tracking patterns. But when you're looking up at the sky and you're wondering if it's a UFO that you're seeing, it can be different, because sometimes when you look up at the night sky and you're seeing a UFO, you could see a completely black section of the night sky where the rest has stars and constellations that you're accustomed to seeing. But you maybe look up at the night sky and be like, why am I seeing all of Orion except for its belt? Okay, there's obviously something in front of that. Or you may look up at the night sky and see what happened to us. You may be like, okay, well, I'm not seeing any aurora borealis up in this section of the sky. That part only has 3 stars and the rest of it's black, but the rest of the sky seems to be moving in that dancing of light colors above us. When you start to see things like that, you're aware that, okay, this isn't a plane, this isn't a satellite. One thing that a lot of craft tend to do is, unlike our planes, which tend to have different colored lights at different sections, at the wings and at the tail and the nose, what have you, when I've seen lights on craft, now I don't see them strobe typically, which is quite odd, but I haven't seen that. In my experience, I tend to see either the craft being like 3. So it'll have a light at each corner like a triangle, or it'll have little red lights right beside the white lights, which sound kind of odd, but that's what I've seen when it comes to some military craft and with the cone heads. When I've seen plating ones I haven't seen the outside of, I've typically seen the inside. When I've seen gray craft, it looks like it's a polished silver that's very, very reflective. And when you see that in the sky, it just kind of reflects what's around it. Sometimes when you're looking in the sky, you may see something that looks very similar in color to a cloud, but then you'll see all the clouds passing by, and that object still remaining very stationary in that exact position. And you'll look down at the tree line going, okay, well, it's between this tree, and if I don't move, where is that? And you'll watch it for 10 minutes or a half hour, and you'll still not see it move. And that'll be a clear indication that what you're looking at isn't a satellite or a plane or a hot air balloon, but rather something that is very foreign occupying that space. That is what I've noticed.
What's very interesting is if we look up into the sky, it'll probably pass any time, unless it has already. The International Space Station has been flying over today with a Japanese rocket chasing behind it. So if you're in the area where you can see the ISS flying over, look behind it, and you'll see the Japanese rocket trying to catch up to it in order to dock. So it's kind of cool.
That would definitely be interesting. But one thing that I should mention is when you see ET craft, they can have some very sporadic patterns, whether it's going up or down or left or right, or on these odd horizontal movements and then suddenly going straight across the sky the other way. Things that our satellites cannot possibly do. Sharp turns and angles that our planes are not capable of, yet being completely silent. It's very mind-boggling the first few times you see it until you become more accustomed to what you're seeing and are accepting that what you're seeing is something that isn't from here.
Karen has a question for you, and she is asking, Samantha, do you feel like you're human, hybrid, or that you have a mixture of blood factors?
In a sense, I feel human. I know in a lot of ways I've been called a hybrid by people, and that is probably a good way to describe me, because my family has had tampering for quite a few generations now, which is fine. But when it comes to my soul, I know my soul is from the Pleiades, which is a variety of human. So yes, I do identify as human. Do I identify purely as an earth human? No, not necessarily. In fact, I have a really hard time relating to here most days, but that's okay. It's an experience. I know I've got a bunch of different types of ET DNA. With the Tans being so heavily interested in me, I know that is based upon not only a past life connection, but also based upon them meddling with my family's DNA, as well as having Pleiadian DNA in there. They are two of the more common groups that interact within our gene pool.
Shar has a question for you, and she is saying, Samantha, I've never heard of anyone who has met so many different aliens. Is this common?
I think it's more common than people believe, Shar. Another person that Dave has on his show is our Keith Andrew, and he has also met many different kinds, as has Simon Parks. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Carla Turner also met several different kinds. As the evolution of human consciousness increases, the amount of people that are having contact with not just one variety of extraterrestrial and multidimensional, but several, if not dozens, is going to increase. So what I am going through at this time is actually going to become more common, if not the norm, with time as it passes. It's nothing special. It's really not. It's just a different experience.
How many species do you think you have met up with now?
Are we breaking things such as reptilians, greys, and mantids into their subcategories as well?
Yes.
40, maybe 50. I'd have to probably write it all down and go through my journals to be sure.
Now, a lot of people would look at that number and say that's impossible. How could one person have all of that different type of contact with all these different species? That just seems ludicrous, or that maybe you're a little bit off your rocker. How do you combat that?
Well, I'd be more than willing to take a psychological evaluation if that would partially put their mind at ease. But another thing I'd like to mention to them is at any given point in history, something that we take for granted now as being perfectly normal or reasonable has been perceived as ludicrous, whether it was the Earth being perceived as being flat versus round, humans having equal rights, women being as intelligent as men, you name it. At any given point, something that we see as logical was seen as ludicrous. But when it comes to having this much contact, this is part of what I agreed to do. And if they're not willing to accept that I'm willing to have, not willing to, but that I have this much contact and I'm willing to allow more beings to come into my life and interact with me, then I wonder, I would actually pose a question to them is, so what is an acceptable or likely degree of contact in their point of awareness? Do they believe contact is possible? I perceive this and interact with these beings with an open mind. I'm not judging them when I meet them. Part of the reason why I have this much contact is because I spent the time to develop my psychic abilities. That way I could have more conscious contact, more astral contact, more contact in general with initially what I wanted was just spirit guides and angelic beings. But when I told them I'd be willing to see them in their true forms, ETs came to the forefront above most others. And that's okay. I would ask them to develop their abilities and see what came into play for them if they were willing to challenge me to that extent.
Do you feel that there are more species to come, or do you think that you've already met all the ones you're going to meet?
Oh, no, I don't think that's ever going to stop, Dave. There are millions of species out there. Who knows how many are interacting with Earth at any given time. I believe, what was it? I just saw it the other day. Wasn't it, is it Russia or China that has documentation of over 100 different races of ETs that are in contact with humans at this time?
Russia.
I knew it was one of them. Thank you. So if we as a race have had contact with over 100 that we have cataloged from when they believed it was necessary to start cataloging them, why would my 40 or 50, whatever it is, seem like such a ludicrous or possibly insane number?
Well, it's an easy answer. The majority of the population does not believe that this is even happening. They're blind to the fact, Samantha.
That's true, but the majority of the population believes many things that I consider to be absolutely ludicrous and outdated, but we're not going to get into that.
Very understandable, and I think the crowd that we have around here is a little bit more attuned as to what's going on, but they're even in your area, my area, other areas around, there is a whole mainstream out there led by the media who does not believe that anything like this is taking place.
And that's okay, because with them, that will change with time. Humanity is waking up. We are increasing our vibration. We are becoming more aware. And if these people do choose to maintain having these blinders on, sooner or later, they will become aware of the extraterrestrial and multidimensional nature of reality, whether it's by choice, by experience, or by ETs hovering above every major city in the world at one point. They will come to realize this is a matter of reality.
Are you comfortable with people having that become a reality? And the reason why I ask that, it sounds like a very simple question. But the reason why I ask that is because I think a lot of people are about to have their asses handed to them in the reality situation here because they're not ready for it. I don't think people are ready for it.
I don't know if they have much longer to keep that as a choice, though, Dave. We are destroying our planet at an astronomically fast pace. Our population is not healthy. Our planet is not healthy, and if we're not careful, we could ultimately end up bringing it close to destruction. ETs aren't going to allow that. But they'd rather have a peaceful intervention than any other alternative.
I understand that, but there's a lot of people who are mixed up in their own thoughts, their own lives, their own, stresses. From family to money to mortgage to boats and ATVs, vacations. They don't have time to all of a sudden throw extraterrestrials on the plate there, young lady.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not actually that young. I'm 30. But when it comes to the ET aspect of reality, how important is that mortgage going to be the day that we have ET craft hovering above every parliament and political building? How important is going to work going to be that day? And all these trivial matters such as going to church and maintaining our religious beliefs, everything like that is going to be thrown out the window because it's going to shake the way people perceive reality, and it's going to call for a whole new world to come into play.
You're getting all us old people a little upset. 30 seems so young, my dear. 30 seems so young to this crowd. Yes, even Aussie Andy is saying 30 sounds young to me.
Fair enough.
Exactly. You're stirring the pot here with us old people here. Claudia has a question. I know. Claudia has a question, and when she's fired up, the questions keep coming, and we love them, Claudia. Love it when you ask questions. Thank you. Samantha, do you think at one point in the future we will be in spirit and not need our body, and at that point we can travel anywhere?
Yes, I believe that is more than capable for us. A lot of humanity is raising in vibration and is having less of the physical experiences that the rest of humanity is having. And if you look at how we are going compared to where we were in the Middle Ages, in such a fear-based state, in a constantly sick state where we died very, very young and had a very bleak existence, to how long we live now and how much more spiritually attuned we are and connected to more of a unison and global brotherhood, so to speak, in the most beautiful of ways, seeing the connecting consciousness that we share with one another. We are raising in vibration, and I think people forget that. But we will no longer require our bodies. That may take us 1,000 years. But that's okay. That, in the grand scheme of things, is absolutely nothing as far as time is concerned.
So what do you think then of the Pope saying that if extraterrestrials come down, he would love to baptize them?
I think the Pope's being pretty assumptive, or being a little bit God, how would you say that? Is it assumptuous? What is it?
I
He's
would say
assuming a lot.
assumptive.
Yeah, I think he's really being quite assuming that they'd be willing to convert to his religion and perceive him as a leader. Many of these beings believe in some form of prime creator or creative essence or force, but they don't necessarily believe the doctrine in which he's trying to spread. I mean, for all we know, they might find Scientology or something else more to their liking. Who knows, right?
Oh my goodness. Could you imagine?
No.
What if the Scientologists have it right? What about the Mormons? What if they have it right?
Well, I'd be really surprised if any of them have it right, because from what I've been told, we have it wrong. They don't understand religion. They highly understand spirituality. They understand seeing the connection between all living things, and how what happens in my energy affects your energy, and what happens in the plant's energy affects your energy, and vice versa. So for them, something as silly as not wearing something made of two fabrics, or the concept of virginity, none of that they really understand. From my experience and understanding, they've explained to me that sex is a very sacred thing. It's the concept of virginity is mind-boggling to them. Sorry if I'm not allowed to say that word. I just thought about that.
Mind-boggling? Yeah, you can't say that on Space Out Radio. You can't say that at all.
Exactly.
Well, you bring up a good point, though, because their fashion sense is apparently terrible. I know the ones I saw. You know, they have to get used to this two fabrics. And you know what? Here's the other thing. You bring up a good point about plants having feeling. This brings up the whole veganism thing. Mm-hmm. You know, if we're hurting plants here, maybe we should be anti-vegites.
Oh, actually, I think we should all just absorb universe juice, or connect to the universal life essence and breathe that in. It's on my to-do list for this lifetime.
Interesting.
I'm not joking, Dave. That's honestly my resolutions before I die.
Is to figure out how not to eat.
How not to rely on eating things, rather than actually just pulling universal energy in and using that as my sustenance. Have you never heard of those people that the Vatican are following because they are already doing this?
Yes, the gentlemen, I believe, are in China.
And there's also women from India that are doing it.
That's
and
right.
Sufis. All these incredible people. If they can do it, why can't I do it? Come on, universe. What's it going to take for that to happen? I don't want to hurt plants.
That's taken veganism to a whole new level. You realize that.
But you do realize that's what many of these ETs are. Many of them just drink liquids. They don't have teeth. I've never seen a gray with teeth.
So what do they eat?
Typically, from what I've noticed, more like a smoothie or juice type thing, or nothing at all. If we're talking about the more higher vibrational ones, things such as light beings only pull energy in from their surroundings and the connection to source. They don't believe in depleting energy or energy vampirism. Some beings that are of a malevolent nature, such as some of the negative reptilians, or things you'll find the lower astrals, such as not necessarily shadow beings, but some of the negative varieties of gray do partially feed off of loose, which is the energy we emit when we're scared. Some of them, such as reptilians, can be more omnivorous, although having a tendency to prefer uncooked meat and enjoying hunting, which is fine. Mantis, in my experience, typically only eat plants. Pleiadians tend to be more of a vegetarian or vegan nature. It depends on the group you're in contact with, and it depends on if they're willing to eat in front of you. Eating is a very intimate thing if you think about it.
Well, you know what? Most of them just haven't tried bacon yet.
The thought of bacon for most of them would probably be enough to make them throw up. Sorry, but it would.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Bacon is just way too good. Way too good. You know, it just, it feels good on the palate.
But Dave, these beings, they not only sense energy from emotions, But when you take food and you, let's say you put your salad on your fork or you put your steak on your fork and you put it in your mouth, you actually, with your mouth and your tongue, you start to pick up on the energetic resonance of whatever you were eating. And when you do that, you welcome that energy and vibration into your body. So let's say you're having a bacon cheeseburger like we talked about earlier, and you're having it from something like McDonald's, where it's not happy cows, not happy pigs, not happy cheese, really unhappy bread, and lots of preservatives. That is a very dense, sporadic vibration you're bringing to your body. Versus if you get one that's from a farm, then, and a happy farm. So think your local farms that you all have, where farmer takes care of the animal, names the animal, gives them all the good food, and at the end of their life takes them to the slaughterhouse. Well, that animal's terrified when it goes to the slaughterhouse, so you're still introducing a fear vibration into your body, although less so than one that grew up in a factory farm. Versus if you, I know it's going to sound kind of weird, but if you grow your own food, and you talk to the plants and you explain the plants that I'm taking this food for my substance. I am watering you. I'm loving you. I'm sending you Reiki or whatever energy to help you build more leaves, and you do that energetic exchange with the plant, then you are not having the same degree of hostility coming into your body. And I really hope I'm not losing you or the audience in explaining that one. But that is part of how they've explained it to me.
I still think we will argue over the bacon.
Dave, do you remember how they have veggie products that taste just like bacon, just like steak, just like all those beautiful things that you love to eat?
Yes, I know. I read Philip Kraft's book. I did. But it's bacon. It's bacon. It's a staple. Anyways, moving on from the bacon talk, because this will turn into a regular, brouhaha, war of words is what I'm trying to say, in a most polite sense, because that's the way you are. Mm-hmm. Do you expect 2017 to be a more active year, shall we say, when it comes to contact for you and people in the species you have talked to? Do they even follow the calendar?
They don't necessarily follow the calendar, but they do follow energy. And for me, it's going to be a much more active year. For other people, it probably will be fairly active if they're able to take themselves out of that fear vibration and be a little more open to the different beings coming into contact with them.
So should people be prepared, in your opinion, for any more sorts of contact, maybe from the species that are taking them, but other species as well?
Yes, especially if they're asking for contact or hoping to expand upon the contact that they're having, then yes, you can expect more contact in the next year.
Will the signs and the signals change, though?
They're always evolving and changing, Dave, depending upon what your consciousness level is. For a long time, I just used a blue butterfly just to tell me and give me a heads up if I was going to have ETs. That way I wouldn't go to bed and wake up face to face with a being in the middle of the night staring at me. And then, well, I startle. I startle. Whether it's at snakes, whatever, I do startle. So for a long time, I used that symbol. But as it's changed for me, I just got used to only relying on feeling the energy in my day-to-day life, and then having that awareness that contact was coming. The same evolution will happen for other people. In fact, it's already started for many people, and that's why they're starting to notice synchronistic events like seeing the word UFO a lot before they have an encounter, or feeling the ETs a lot, or just thinking about them a fair bit and then they show up. That is becoming more common for people.
So when people are going to be preparing for 2017, if they are current contactees, and let's say their contact has been of the malevolent nature, should they prepare for it, and if so, how?
Well, if they are contactees and they have had contact with malevolent beings, then there are a few things that you can do to deal with that. Although moving does not really change the degree of contact, you are able to change the way in which you interact within those scenarios, and you are able to do some things to change those beings coming to get you. If they're a simpler being to deal with, such as grays, and they're malevolent, then you are able to do things such as energetic protection, which can make it so they're less inclined to deal with you. Some people do respond in a physical way towards these beings and try to hurt them to have them not come back, and that doesn't always necessarily work, because sometimes they just bring bigger beings with them to assist them in their agenda. You are able to try to talk to them or negotiate and mention that if I have a contract with you, I'd like to void that and no longer have it going, which with some benevolent and some malevolent beings, that can help to void it. Alternatively, if you are having contact with malevolent beings and you're not able to deal with it and you're not able to get rid of it, then that could be a bit of a touchy one. It really can, in which case, depending upon your scenario, I might be able to help you, I might not, I might refer you to someone else if I feel they're better suited for it, in which case, send me an email.
Do you find that for people who are currently having the contact that in 2017 they will be giving more downloads, more signs? Has any extraterrestrial at this point that you have had run-ins with or contact with told you about what 2017 is going to look like?
No, but I haven't bothered to ask. My last few contact experiences have been a little bit all over the place. In the last, Dave, since the last time you and I spoke doing the interview, I've had one MyLab encounter, I think 2 reptilian encounters, 1 tan encounter, and 2 other odd ones. So for me, I haven't had the time to ask them, hey, what's coming up? Because I'm dealing with those kind of encounters on top of family passing and everything else that goes on in December.
Question from Spear in the SOR Space Travelers Club. She is asking, what about folks working with the councils on high and grand councils? What's up for them?
Chances are you'll end up having the councils doing their usual, finding out more information from you about what's going on, giving you direction of how they best wish to see you proceed. But on the same hand, if you are having interaction with higher vibrationals, such as Federation of Light, Family of Light, councils and high commands of this and that, you are on the radar of the positive ones, and you will also become on the radar for negative ones, because as humanity steps up its game in conscious evolution, you will also notice more fighting back from the less kind beings trying to lower that vibration again and decrease you from, or deter you rather, from doing the work that these councils are hoping to have you do to help humanity and the fellow starseeds.
Do you believe the council will move in 2017 towards closer possibility of disclosure?
Not necessarily. I think it really depends upon 2 different things. The way in which China and Russia react, as well as the way that the US reacts, and whether the New World Order is going to go through with their depopulation agenda or not. If they seem to make a very swift move towards that, then yes, I could see these beings showing up over every major political center in the world.
Do we seem to be closer to disclosure heading into the next year or 2, or is this just a pipe dream for us tinfoilers?
I don't think it's a pipe dream for tinfoilers, but we are getting closer every year, and we're starting to see it a lot more in our media. Have you noticed that in the last 5 years, they actually started talking more about ETs and about UFOs? For instance, they've had the Honorable Paul Hellyer on CBC, and he was talking about the different beings that he was in contact with. At least I believe it was CBC. My guides are saying I'm probably wrong about that one. But we have different people such as that showing up on there. We have Colleen, oh my goodness, I can't remember her name. You can YouTube this. She called herself the mother of the Pleiadians. Her name was Colleen something. She showed up on one of the major news stations in the States in the last several years, talking about what was going on, and this was during the Obama administration, so that'd be within the last 8 years, they are bringing contact and extraterrestrials more into the light, and that is an indication that we are getting closer towards disclosure one way or another. It is an inevitability at some point, Dave, which could be a good thing for this planet.
Inevitability is one thing. It's whether or not the people are ready, because that is going to cause one hell of a human enema.
Yeah, but on the same hand, if we continue doing what we're doing, we are killing ourselves and killing each other off quite quickly. It may be necessary.
Maybe, if the political people do not get out of hand in playing war and playing God with people.
Well, they've been doing it for thousands of years. It's the same ruling elite families, but that's another matter.
Weird indeed. Weird indeed times. We only got about 3 minutes left for you.
Okay.
Hard to believe. This is our last episode of 2017 with you. So, as we continue along the 2017 frame, what do you see happening in regards to extraterrestrial contact, extraterrestrial commitment? Do you see the media continuing to check out the sources that we're talking about it leading up to the U.S. election, or do you see things going silent on this front?
A couple different things. When it comes to ET contact and how it affects normal people, we'll begin to start hearing about new races that are coming to different contactees and abductees, and that's because, as we discussed earlier, our vibration is changing, our world is changing, and that's opening us up to new beings as our energy shifts, which is wonderful. When it comes to the media and how it perceives it, honestly, Dave, as much as I'd love for them to go into it, it doesn't seem like Trump is terribly interested in talking about extraterrestrials and multidimensionals. I would be surprised in one sense if it does go much further, because Hillary did seem to be the option for disclosing that much more so than Trump. Which is all right. So be it.
What do you see for other nations, though? Russia, China, hell, even the North Koreans might get into this.
Yeah, but Dave, a lot of these countries have already released this information to their public, just like France. They mentioned what ones their governments have already had experience with, whether it's their sightings of extraterrestrial craft or whatever. Is it not Russia or is it China? One of the two of them has within their university degrees on ufology. The different universities in China have requested speakers such as Mary Rodwell, a UFO and contact researcher from Australia, to go down and speak to their students in universities, explain to them the nature of contact, the evolution of contact, and where humanity is going at this time. To me, that means that we're actually playing kind of behind the ball, whereas someone else, such as other countries, Russia, China, France, Brazil, they have they're ahead of the game on us. Their citizens are much more aware of what's truly going on than we are, because our media is choosing to be silent.
You hit the nail on the head there. Why did you have to say that with about 90 seconds to go about the media?
Sorry, Dave.
Jeez. That sets us up for January 10th when you were on again. Take a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, Samantha, just explaining your website, where people can get a hold of you, and what they can look for in getting into contact with you.
Alrighty. Well, my website is www.samanthamowat.ca. On my website, I typically mention things of what it is I'm willing to do. I do psychic readings for people, giving them an idea of what's going on, although I will not be continuing those until halfway through January. I need to clear up some of this energetic mediumshipness that's going on with family members hanging out. When it comes to getting in contact with me, you can always email me at samanthamowat@live.com. I do have a YouTube channel. Just type into the search engine on YouTube, Samantha Mowat. I have about, I believe, 30 videos up. I've got another 30 or so on my computer I need to release. It's just been a bit of a process right now, and that's okay. If you're a contactee, I'd love to hear from you. Just send me an email. It's always fun exchanging stories with other contactees and getting an idea of how contact is changing for more than just myself. it's always refreshing to know that I'm, one, not alone in going through this, and to meet new people and kind of get their idea of what's going on within this world. One thing I'd like to mention about the YouTube videos I'm doing is I'm just approaching the end section of 2014. I'm trying to make a video about every prominent contact experience. I'm not doing them about really small things now because I don't have time. The ETs and my spirit guides keep pushing me to get as many of these videos out there to help humanity understand how contact occurs in the day-to-day life and the different beings you encounter, how these beings change your perception not only of reality but of the world that we're living in, and how you interact with people as a result. But they're also asking that I explain how your energy and where your emotional state is, what's going on with your life, can affect which beings are coming to see you. So far, I think I've only released videos on 8 or 10 different types of beings, and even that I haven't gone into too much detail. So definitely check them out. I'm trying to have a whole bunch more out up there. And Dave, is there anything you'd like to say in the last little bit?
I want to say thank you for coming in and making this a monthly broadcast with you the second Tuesday every month, because I wanted to do this for a while with you, and it just panned out. Samantha, thank you so much. You hold on. If you're listening on the Space Out Radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, in the background. He rocks us in and out of every single show. The Guitar God, the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. If you want to check this show out or others, go to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. You can get it in about, 2-3 minutes from now. We appreciate you taking the time. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. And, of course, we will talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. Ronald Murphy is our guest. Yes, the Crypto Guru is back tomorrow night. I look forward to you being with us as well. Ronald in the chat room, I see you there, Saskatchewan boy. You better not be a Rough Riders fan, but I expect you here tomorrow night as well. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night.